There are definitely gender differences, I will say.
I'm sorry. Anna.
Recording in progress.
Good evening. I hereby call this meeting of the Greenbelt City Council to order. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Nisu? Here. Ms. McKinney?
Here.
Ms. Pompey?
Here.
Ms. Pope?
Here.
Mr. Roberts?
Here.
Ms. Weaver?
Here.
Mayor Jordan?
I'm here. Please join us in a moment of silent reflection as we think about several residents and former residents who have passed away since the last council meeting. Resident Wendy Osborne and former resident Jonathan Cohen. Let's join us, please, in a moment of silent reflection. Thank you. Council Member McKinney, will you lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Hey, thank you so much. Well, we're going to open up the meeting with petitions and requests, which is something that we do every council meeting. It's an opportunity for our residents and others to make a petition, to make a request to the city administration, sometimes to make a statement. Council does not generally, we want to respond appropriately. So when you make a petition, it's logged by the city clerk into the record. Staff will research the question and we'll get back to the petitioner in a timely fashion. So at this time, let me go ahead and invite any of you. Would anyone like to make a petition or a request? Well, I see Michael Hartman out there. Michael Hartman, if you could state your name and where you live in Greenbelt, we need that for the record. And 3 to 5 minutes is what we generally allow. If you need a little bit longer, sometimes with council's will, we do that. So and always, we strive to be civil in our remarks and not to call anybody out. So Michael Hartman, you're up.
I hope those remarks weren't directed at me, because I'm
Usually weren't.
civil. Anyway, Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. As you all know, Saturday is June 1st and the beginning of Pride Month. And on behalf of Greenbelt's Emerald City Pride, want to invite you to a day of celebration. It's June 15th, starting with a parade, a pride parade. We're meeting at the playground near the Spellman Overpass around 11:15, 11:30. And then we're parade up to Roosevelt Center, where we're having a festival with many, many events and entertainment and things of that nature. The night before, we're having our first annual Pride Prom in the space at Beltway Plaza. So you'll be getting more information about it, but I wanted to give you a heads up about Pride Month and our parade and festival on June 15th. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much. You missed something. We're doing a flag raising on May the 31st at 3 p.m. right here in the Greenbelt Municipal Building at the flagpoles.
Yep. Thank you very much.
No, thank you.
Okay.
And let's see, are there any other petitions or requests? Anybody online?
I don't see any hands raised online now.
Please. Sir, Mr. Orleans.
Thank you, Bill Orleans, resident. Of course, the standing rules state that a petitioner or requester has 5 minutes in which to state her or his request, not
Please
3
go
to
ahead and
5
make your
as council
petition, sir.
generally allows. Well, no, I think we would all take comfort in council abiding by its own
Please.
standing rules. Am I wrong in that, sir?
No, please, if you have a petition, please continue.
That's a question you could answer now. You don't have to
clock
wait
is
for the city
ticking.
manager to respond to me or not respond to me months from now. You can respond to me now that you would like to abide by your own standing rules, would you not? Well, I guess you don't choose to answer that. So maybe we're left to wonder whether council, or at least the mayor, enjoys abiding by his own
Please.
standing rules.
Please. Do you have a petition?
Yes, I do.
Okay, please
Thank
go
you very
ahead.
much, sir. I'm getting to it. My first petition was that council should abide by its own standing rules. For several months, in fact, more than a year, I've been asking the same questions as it relates to my concern that council should apologize for taking action in a closed session by issuing an apology for statements made earlier with regard to a Public Safety Advisory Committee correspondence. This many years later, I'm still waiting for somebody adequately to respond to that request. I'm still waiting for someone adequately to respond to my request that the city obtain the study from Ms. Knight at Franklin Park that Franklin Park had done concerning the homeless population in Franklin Park, her assertion that it being increased number of out-of-town homeless people rather than people who were formerly living in Greenbelt, maybe living in Franklin Park, who are now homeless. I'm still waiting on that. I'm still waiting on somebody, council, city management, to respond to my question concerning the appropriateness, the legality of council appropriating city money in closed session. This is with regard to the former interim city manager. The council voted to provide a bonus to that person in closed session. I'm still waiting for the answer. Under what statute, under what law, under what norm does council think it's appropriate to appropriate city money in closed session? I thank you very much.
Well, thank you. And Mr. Summerall?
I apologize. We have not provided a response to Mr. Orleans. We have drafted a response. It's been reviewed by legal counsel, and somehow we just missed it in this packet. But we have the responses to the two items that Mr. Orleans has brought up now, and there were a few other inquiries that he had that we're also responding to. So I'll make sure that Mr. Bill, that you get that letter no later than tomorrow.
Okay, Mayor Pro Tem.
Well, I would also like to point out that he has been responded to on many of these issues on multiple times. This is just, he has had many conversations and had verbal responses. This is simply a written response. So it is not as if these have been ignored. He has been responsive. I believe he even talked to Ms. Knight from the management company and got as much, so just for the audience, there have been responses. We are now doing a formal written response to hopefully put these things to rest.
And there has been a written response prior as well. So there have been written responses and verbal responses. So it's not like we have not responded to him, but we're going to do it again.
Yeah, and it's tough. In council rules, there's a line about not casting aspersions on other people's intentions. So we'll just leave it at that. But are there any other petitions or requests? Yes, please.
Thank you, Conrad Hurling at 11B Ridge. As you know, since I have no longer served on the council, I have served as an alternate to the Reparations Commission. The Mayor Pro Tem gave me a call a couple of weeks ago, indicated that at a future meeting of the City Council that there would be a decision, since there now is a vacancy. Josh Hamlet was fantastic, and I'm sorry that because of other commitments he's had to leave the commission, and I would be glad to serve in that capacity. Just wondering because I was under the impression that it would be on tonight's agenda, but I take it because it's going to be a few weeks before the next Reparations Commission, the third Tuesday of June. Is that what will occur?
Yeah, I believe it is.
It's on tonight's
It's on tonight's agenda.
Should be.
Okay. All right. So I'll continue to attend the meetings and so forth
It is number 22.
as
on
an
the-
alternate.
Number 22 on the agenda.
I'm sorry?
Number 22.
Oh, so it is actually
On
on
the
tonight's
consent
agenda?
agenda.
You're being reappointed
Okay.
tonight.
I need actually some correction surgery for the eyes. Didn't catch that. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Mr. Hurling, you're going to have to sit nails and just edge of your seat until we pass the consent agenda, which may happen in just a few minutes.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other petitions or requests? Hearing on, let's move to the next section of the agenda. And that is the consent agenda.
Goes.
There we go.
Conrad, listen, it's happening.
Yeah, I was thinking about pulling item number 24 off the consent agenda because I think we should talk a little bit about the savings that we're working on for energy. So I'd like to move that we adopt the consent agenda with the item number 24 removed to the regular agenda. I'd like to make that motion.
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent agenda passes. Let's hear it for Mr. Hurling's reappointment. Okay, so that brings us to the agenda itself. Are there any modifications to the agenda? And hearing none, can I please have a motion to adopt the agenda as amended?
So moved.
Councilmember Nieselo seconded. Mr. Sumron, you have a quizzical look on your face. Is there anything we need to change?
Yes, I'm wondering if we're going to add the legislative action.
Oh, I thought they were on here. Yeah, so can I make a friendly amendment to add as item number
26.
26, the Maryland Municipal League legislative action request for 2024-25? Is that okay?
Want to add this in addition to the one you just took off the consent agenda? So now you want to add this?
Yeah, I do want to add. Actually, we have to. The deadline is May the 31st.
I know, it comes up quick, I know, yeah, but it's a
Okay.
lot, so because you just added something
Yes,
else.
yeah.
So,
Okay, so is there any further discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Thank you very much. Okay, so that brings us to the next section of the agenda, communications. And under communications, we're going to start off with presentations and proclamations. The first one, item 7A, Jewish American Heritage Month proclamation. And I'd like to present a proclamation declaring May as Jewish American Heritage Month. It's towards the end of the month, but certainly we could not move forward without doing this. So I know there's some representatives from Mishka Torah here. Would you all like to come up? Okay. That's good. That's good right there. This is a proclamation. Whereas Jewish American Heritage Month is established by presidential proclamation declaring each year since 2006 to honor the contributions and achievements of Jewish Americans, and whereas the month of May was chosen due to the successful celebration of the 350th anniversary of American Jewish history, May of 2004. And whereas Jewish Americans had fought for religious freedom, helping to find one of the bedrock principles upon which America was built. And whereas Jewish Americans continue to enrich every part of American life as educators, entrepreneurs, athletes, artists, scientists, entertainers, public officials, and many, many more roles. Therefore, be it resolved that I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim May as Jewish American Heritage Month in the city of Greenbelt and encourage residents to visit and explore the resources of organizations, particularly those offering access to online programs and collections honoring Jewish Americans, such as the Greenbelt Museum, the Library of Congress, the United States Holocaust Memorial Museum, the National Archives, the National Museum of American Jewish History, and the National Gallery of Art. So I'd like to present you with this proclamation. And if you turn this way, we can get a photo. Why don't you grab part of this? Congratulations. Thank you so much. Hey, if you'd like to go over to the podium, you can say a few words about what this occasion means to you, the month, some of the activities going on at Mishka Torah, which is
Great. Thank
bedrock,
you, Mayor Jordan. It's a pleasure to be here. My name is Karen Nee. I live at 20 M Hillside Road, and I am a board member at Mishkan Torah and the chair of the Children's Education Committee. I wanted to thank the City Council of Greenbelt for your continued and enthusiastic support of our Jewish community, and especially I wanted to thank Jenny Pompey and Kristen Weaver, who came to our open house a couple weeks ago. It was really great to see you there. And yeah, I think, you know, we all love being here in Greenbelt at Mishkan Torah, and we thank you very much.
So I know that open houses occur from time to time, and there was a series of programs on Sunday afternoons sort of open. Is there something coming up?
So we're kind of taking a break from that over the summer because a lot of people are out of town, including a lot of our board members, but it will be starting back up in the fall. We have a program called Sundays at MT, and it's on our website on the calendar. I think the Sundays for the upcoming season have already been selected, but there are free bagels and coffee from Goldberg's in Silver Spring, which has really good bagels. And there's activities like a book club. Sometimes there's like a Hebrew discussion group. It kind of varies, but it's open to everybody. You do not have to be Jewish to attend. You can just stop by and have a bagel and say hello. And yeah, so we encourage everyone to come, and especially if you or someone you know does have some Jewish heritage and is interested in getting more involved. We're always really enthusiastic to welcome new members.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of fun. Would have loved to have been there at the open house. I had another commitment at the same time, but
No,
next time.
I understand. I wasn't saying anything bad about others. I just really liked seeing Jenny Pompey and Kristen Weaver there. That's all.
We're sorry we missed the music, but at least we got some ice cream.
Yeah, the ice cream was good.
Ice cream.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So next we have a proclamation acknowledging Chesapeake Bay Awareness Week. And Kevin Carpenter Driscoll, are you here? Come on up, and I'd like you to accept this proclamation and maybe talk about some of the activities, the many activities that we're doing here in Greenbelt, but in particular, something that's coming up this week. Whereas the Chesapeake Bay is the largest and most productive estuary in the United States, with its watershed spanning 6 states and the District of Columbia, and whereas the Chesapeake Bay watershed covers 64,000 square miles and is an extraordinary and vital natural resource with some of the nation's most productive farm and forest lands, and whereas the Chesapeake Bay is fed by 50 major tributaries, including the Susquehanna, Potomac, Rappahannock, York, James River, and stretches 200 miles from Havre de Grace, Maryland, to Norfolk, Virginia. And whereas the Chesapeake Bay watershed is home to more than 18 million people, many of whom rely on the watershed's natural resources for their livelihood and recreational activities. And whereas an important source of food for Maryland and the east coast of the United States, the Chesapeake Bay produces more than 400 million pounds of seafood harvest each year. And whereas the more than 76,000 farms in the Chesapeake Bay watershed contribute more than $6.8 billion in revenue, added contributions to the economy in the region, and provides food to millions of Americans. And whereas the city of Greenbelt is in the Anacostia River watershed, which is important to the character and quality of life in the community and ultimately the health of the Chesapeake Bay. And whereas the Trusted Source, that's a publication, has recognized the importance of the Chesapeake Bay Week Awareness Week, and has encouraged its members to do the same. Now, therefore, I, Emmett V. Jordan, by the authority vested in me by the residents and City Council of Greenbelt, do hereby proclaim June 1st through the 9th as Chesapeake Bay Awareness Week in the city of Greenbelt, and urge all residents to recognize the importance of this observation and to participate in events, activities, and educational programs designed to increase awareness of the importance of the Chesapeake Bay watershed in our community. Kevin, thank you for accepting this. There's an activity. I mean, we are working with the invasive species so much, and there's a direct link between managing those and the health of the Chesapeake Bay. So I was wondering if you could maybe talk a little bit about the volunteer activity coming up. Is it this weekend? It's Saturday, right?
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So this weekend, I actually be running a reptiles and amphibians program with the park rangers, introducing people to some of our local reptiles and amphibians, talking about their importance in the habitat. But on June 8th, I'll be running a program for Chesapeake Bay Awareness Week, removing invasive species and installing native species in the same area that we were working on Earth Day, continuing that project, and I hope to finish it up or get closer to it on that event.
That's fantastic. Hey, we get a lot of volunteers, young people sometimes looking for service hours. And of course, in the summer, school is out and the service hours aren't needed quite as much. Do you think we're going to experience a dip in volunteers, or what are we going to do?
I hope not. I think that, volunteering is a really cool activity, and I think these young kids are going to want to come out and do it.
You're right. Volunteering is fun.
Yeah.
Okay.
And cool.
And cool, too. Okay. Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, at this time, we are going to adjourn the regular meeting to hold a public hearing on the FY 2025 proposed budget. So could I have a motion to adjourn the meeting?
I believe it actually says no motion is required to begin or end.
That is so cool. Okay, so I hereby call this public hearing to order. On May 25th, 2024, the city manager presented the proposed budget for fiscal year 2025 to the city council. Since then, council has held 9 work sessions to review the budget. The proposed budget is available online at greenbeltindy.gov, including agenda, material, and recordings of the budget work sessions. The budget is scheduled to be adopted at the regular city council meeting on June the 3rd, 2024. The city code requires that a second public hearing be held on the budget prior to its adoption. Tonight's public hearing is the last scheduled hearing before the adoption. So at this time, is there anyone who wishes to make a comment on the budget? Is there anybody online?
There are no hands raised and nothing in the Q&A online.
Okay, Mr. Orleans, your hand was first.
Thank you. Still Bill Orleans, still a resident. Prior to the final budget work session, in fact, I think relatively early on in the process where we were having work sessions, different departments with regard to the budget, the suggestion had been made from this spot that there be issued after each work session an amendment page, an addendum page, clarifying things that were inaccurate in the published budget, draft budget, and things asserted between work sessions. There was an attempt at that, I think, at the final work session, final budget review, but it didn't go far enough, I think, to satisfy me. That's a very high bar, apparently. I'm simply making this point now that in the future, if we're all still here next year when if Greenbelt's still here and considering a budget, that when the draft budget is issued, invariably there are going to be mistakes, simple grammatical, clerical, typographical rather, mistakes, but also mistakes discovered in the colloquy during each work session. It's a simple request, and it makes sense, I think obvious sense, that a page should be issued after each work session, clarifying the misunderstandings, typographical errors, inaccuracies. And as we go forward, that could be assembled, and then when somebody's later in the process reading the budget book, they'll have that in front of them, or maybe digitally if they're inclined, but something that they could refer to this is a suggestion being made for next year. With regard to this year, I don't have a firm sense of what increases to which departments are in this budget. I have a sense that the police department's budget is increasing. I have a sense that the CARES budget is increasing. But I don't know the extent to which those two departments if indeed they're both increasing, what they're increasing in comparison to the other. It would be nice to have, and I seem to recall this occurring prior to the final public hearing on the budget. It would be nice to have a page simply indicating from the budget which departments are increasing, which departments are decreasing, without necessarily going into the reasons why, simply to have a short one-pager that people could refer to. That's another suggestion for next year. What's also unclear to me is the extent to which we have any ARPA monies left. I'm told that we do. I know that there is consideration, even as of last night, I heard in a meeting, that maybe ARPA money is available for this or that. I'd like to make a suggestion. Council's free to do it tonight. I don't believe it will, because I'm suggesting it, but I'd like council tonight to resolve that any leftover ARPA monies be devoted to something that had been suggested very early on in the ARPA process, and that is that Greenbelt create a more robust social service element to the CARES office, creating a greater emergency fund than now exists, the various funds that equate to the emergency fund, and that Greenbelt make a statement to the future that even after we're no longer receiving federal funds, if there's a need in Greenbelt, Greenbelt Council is resolving year to year to provide some minimal amount of money to meet those emergency needs. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Are there some other comments? Coach K, I believe, was next.
Good evening. Coach K from Franklin Park. I would like to make a proposal to help the city Greenbelt jump rope, the city team, to help them with, they're going to Japan next year. They have a lot of expenses, and I was wondering if they'd like to make a proposal to council to see if we could help them out. I mean, just with their practices and some of the things that they are preparing for this trip to Japan. If we could maybe give them a little, not for the trip to Japan, but to help them get whatever equipment they might need or practices or whatever. So I would like to know, is there anything that council can try to do to help them? They were supposed to be here tonight, but at least one of them, but I'm speaking on behalf of them.
Well, this is a public hearing, so it's an opportunity to speak. The City Stars, they were here at the work session before last and made a presentation, so we heard them.
Okay. Thank you.
I think, Caitlin, I think you sort of gestured before Michael Hartman.
I didn't want to jump the gun and be first, so I can wait my turn. I just wanted to say thank you again for the opportunity to speak before you about our request in the increase of our subsidy, and to say that I acknowledge and understand that even though our shortfall last year was 100,000, which is where we came up with the number of where we think we need to be, that is a large jump in 1 year, and that whatever support council can provide to us will greatly appreciate, and we will put to good use. And we are willing to work with the city in whatever capacity you need from us to make sure that we're still able to provide all the services that we love to provide, and that we think the community does as well. So just again, thank you for considering our request, and yeah, I guess that's it.
Thank you, Dr. McGrath. Please.
Michael Hartman, 2 Court Garden Way. The most important task of the council is to pass a budget for the city. And as a resident and a member of the business community, I want to thank the council, but especially I want to thank Mr. Salmarone, Mr. George, senior staff, and in fact, all of the employees of Greenbelt for putting together a budget. I know this was the first one for Mr. Salmarone, sort of baptism under fire, I suppose. But I really appreciate the work of all of you in putting a budget together for the city. I know it was a team effort, and I can see that the team works very well together. So I just want to say thank you for that.
Are there any other comments? Is there anyone online?
Still haven't seen anyone. There are no hands raised and no comments entered in the Q&A.
Okay, well, I'd like to thank everyone who spoke. We are still accepting comments. If someone wants to send in something in writing or an email, council will review them. At this point, we are slated to consider and potentially adopt the budget at the regular council meeting coming up next week on June the 3rd. So at this time, if there are no further comments, Mr. Salmarone.
There's some items I could respond to now if you're open to them.
Is that council's will?
Okay, there were the three items that Mr. Orleans brought up on the providing updates in real time to the corrections. We looked into this, and the feasibility of putting out a single page at a time was difficult to do on the platforms that we're doing because a change would affect multiple pages at one time. So we looked at it and we took it to serious consideration, but it was just not easily adaptable. Second request on wanting to see a summary of changes. While we cannot put the summary of changes on one page, we do have summary of changes starting on page 88, and it spans over 3 pages, and it looks at department by department and looking at the 2 expense categories, personnel expenses and other expenses. And you can see the changes year to year. The table does not have a percentage increase, so it requires the reader to do some math, but the changes are there. The third.
Good. So on next Wednesday, June the 3rd, the budget draft, it's still a draft, and that will be updated. It'll be completely with all of the changes incorporated. So it's not as though we would be considering the original document that was put forward. So I want to make that clear. And consequently, the version that is available online actually has all of the updates. It will, between now and the 3rd. Maybe by Friday. I don't want to push, but
There are some changes we cannot make because we do not have authorization from council to make those changes. There are some items that we've noted from council that you're going to be voting on that we cannot incorporate those changes until council votes on them. So we wouldn't have a finalized version until a couple weeks after council has voted on the changes, and the team will get to work to make all those changes.
But with the exception of those potential modifications that council may vote, all of the other typographical or just administrative changes that were necessary, as well as substantive ones, are incorporated into the document that we'll be considering.
The other one on the reallocation of funds for CARES and social services, we've emphasized that we're committed to supporting programs that directly affect our residents. We made the commitment of funding all the food subsidy programs through the remainder of the calendar year that were set to expire in September, and we'll continue to explore programming and options of ARPA restricted funds to support our residents.
Okay, thank you very much. So let me formally end the public hearing, and let's move back into the regular meeting. And that will actually bring us to item number 9, which is administrative reports. Mr. Salmarone.
Right. I have many updates, but we have a long meeting, so I'll focus on the important ones. I'll start with the pool. There's been chatter about the pool, whether the pool is closing and for how long and how it's going to affect our residents. The pool, we have a particular challenge with the pool since we first announced the issue, which would have been a couple weeks ago. At that time, we were not aware of the full extent of the remediation work to be done at the pool. So we're a bit coy and shy to talk about it because there were so many unknowns. from the scope of work to how much it will cost to how long it would take. We now have a bit more information. We know the extent of the remediation work that needs to be done. The deck, two sections of the deck need to be repaired, the rear, and as you're facing the pool when you walk in, the section on the right. The deck needs to be repaired due to a drainage problem that has existed for years. Now it is to the point where it has created a void between the surface, the tiled, and the substrate, the concrete area. So there's some challenges there. It has not escalated to the point where we're concerned for residents. We put cones to block the patrons from accessing those areas, but the work needs to be completed. We have engaged an engineer who has designed the scope. We're working on an estimate from the engineers. We simultaneously or concurrently, we reached out to contractors to get an idea of pricing and timeline. We had a tentative timeline that was proposed by the engineer that put the repairs up to a year. And this is one of the reasons we were shy to talk about it, because we do not want to tell council or residents that it could take up to a year, because it would be irresponsible for us to do so. We have a better idea from one of the proposals of what the timing, the length of the repairs would take. We're not looking at a 1-year repair. It would require a shutdown of our indoor pool, but we're trying to time it, the repairs due in a period when we have access to the outdoor pool, so that our residents have access to a pool. So we're working on engaging in this work next year, and we want to time it around the time that the pool opens. So there'll be more information to come from administration and Public Works and Recreations on the matter, but we want to put the word out that we're aware of the concerns. We're trying everything on our end to mitigate the downtime of the pool and address the concerns of the residents. Obviously, there are many questions. What happens to existing passes? You know, these are conversations we're having internally. What does staffing look like during that period? We're trying to put together a solution that has the minimal impact on our residents, our staff, and our recreation resources.
Appreciate that. Yeah. It is very, very important that this work is completed, because to delay it any further just means that additional cost and timing impacts. So we appreciate the update, and please keep council and the public posted so that we're aware of how things are transpiring. Ms. Pope.
Yes, thank you. And thank you for giving the explanation, because I think I had sent an email out yesterday to everyone asking for an explanation, or at least that we should, we need to say something, because people do have questions, and there's a lot of rumors out there, what's happening in the pool and what could happen and what is happening and what's not happening. So after I left the Senior Citizen Advisory Committee, there was quite a few questions. And so I really do appreciate that you give us an update, and we do have to put it somewhere in print so people can, see it and look it up. So I really would appreciate if we can also share something on social media or in a news review or all, wherever you decide is best, just so the word gets out to the public, so to have a little bit of knowledge, a little bit of what's going on.
Thank you for that suggestion. We'll work on 3 items. We'll issue the press release. I'll reach out to the Greenbelt News Review to create a story, just provide the information that we have, and we'll create a project site, upload the project files to our project site on our website. So if anyone wants to see the engineering report, then that will be out there too. We'll be as transparent.
Advisory Committee as well. Thank you.
So I really want to thank you for expediting the engineering and just really taking hold of this situation and putting the work in so that we can address it as soon as possible, because it's significant. But the sooner we're able to accomplish it, the sooner the pool will be open again for everyone to use.
Right, and we appreciate council's support on this. I think the first time we brought it up was in relationship to ARPA, because one of the constraints that we have is that we want to use ARPA money for the remediation project. And we've been sensitive to the reallocation of the ARPA funds, because we want to use as much of the ARPA money as we can for this project. We have two significant projects that we hope to use ARPA money for. That is the chillers and the HVAC system at the community center in the pool. And so the price tag on those two projects is significant.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other items?
Oh,
you
yes,
wanted to address?
absolutely. You would have seen the news that Charleston North apartment building was purchased by Freddie Mac. I don't see an issue there. I spoke with Freddie Mac. They're looking to stabilize the property. So now the servicer lender owns the property, and they're committed to working with us to remediate the issues at Charleston North. The building was recently inspected, and we granted a rental license through August of 2024, which brings them up to the regular license schedule. So we'll re-inspect the property in August and hope to issue a full year rental license for September 1st. So they're in compliance with our agreement. Management team is doing well. So we see nothing but positive trajectory for the property. We had an excellent ACE award ceremony this past week, well attended. Thank you all for your participation. Great news on the Historic Preservation Commission outcome. The body voted unanimously to designate the high school site as a county historic site. So thank you, Council, for your work on that. We continue to work on the streetlights project. I've been working with the team to sort out who the ownership of the streetlights. So good progress on that and preparation for our June 12th work session on that project. And finally, we're working with Congressman Ivey's office on a gun violence prevention event to take place June 29th at Shrum Hills Park.
Thank you so much. Thank you. One quick question on the during the ACE Awards, we saw there were a number of graduating seniors there, and some of them were still looking for financial aid, and this pertains to ARPA money. So I just want to be clear. So we still have a limited amount of funding available for Greenbelt residents that have applied and been accepted to a school or to a program. There's still money available.
We still have funds available. Is there another number? 50,000.
Okay.
And we, both Liz and I reached out independently. So principal of the high school, we apologize for emailing you twice in 2 weeks. But we both reached out to the principal as well as the PTSA for the high school to let them know that the grants were available and provided a link to the application on the website. And since then, I think we've had at least one more education grant application come through in the last couple of days. So the word is getting out.
Right. It's first come, first served, basically. Whoever fills out the application and qualifies, is next until the funding runs out. Okay. Yeah. Thank you very much. Any other questions from council? If not, Mr. Semino, thank you for that update. Thank you for the great information. We appreciate it. Let's move on now to the next section of the agenda, which is legislation. Actually, it's other business. So item number 11 is award of purchase for police radios. And there's a reference from a memorandum from Tim White, and our Chief Bowers is actually here to speak on this a bit. The American Rescue Plan, ARPA funds in the amount of $262,500 have been allocated for the purchase of 30 Motorola APX M70 portable radios. Staff has identified Prince George's County contract number 34655 for the purchase of the Motorola APX N70 radio. The total cost of the 30 Motorola APX N70 radios is $262,408.96. So included in the packet information is a memorandum with additional details about the purchase. So Chief Bowers, welcome. It's nice to have you here.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. Actually, Deputy Chief White is on the line to speak on this
excellent.
particular topic.
Deputy Chief White, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. Good evening.
Hey, good evening. Welcome. Thank you for being here to talk with us about the proposal. It's a lot of money, but at the same time, the communication between we need the most the best possible and expedient technology for our police department to communicate. One question that I had has to do with interoperability. I'm stumbling over that word a little bit, but I was at a meeting not too long ago, and Chief Aziz from the Prince George's County Police Department was there, and I asked a question just about how we're all working together. So this equipment, is it going to be compatible with the systems that Prince George's County is using, with our neighboring municipalities, as well as the District of Columbia or Northern Virginia? I know there's some sort of a communication center or hub that the county established recently. So not to burden you too much, but can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So actually back in 2009, the department joined the regional radio system that's hosted by Prince George's County. And what that system allows is exactly what you're talking about. It allows us to communicate with all of the National Capital Region law enforcement and public safety agencies simply by changing our radio dial over to their radio channel. So for instance, with the Schramm Hills incident, Prince George's County, Maryland State Police, and our allied agencies that responded to assist were all able to come over on our channel and seamlessly communicate. So what this program does is the county is making a transition to an upgraded radio system. In order for us to continue on that system, we have to make the transition to the newer technology radios. Our current radios are out of service and are not compatible with the new system. So these 30 will outfit our frontline patrol officers with these new radios. Given the cost, as you said, this actually doesn't cover all the radios that we need to transition to. We're working on some other funding to try to see what we can do to fund the purchase of the additional radios, but we need to start making the transition now in order to be ready for that compatibility here with the transition to the new radio system.
That makes a whole lot of sense. I appreciate that. I'm just wondering, just in terms of the lifespan, just, typically when you buy a piece of equipment like a computer or a cell phone or a radio, what's the lifespan? Do you think these will be usable and last for 5 years?
I think we can anticipate about 10 years, 10 to 15 years, hopefully on that upper end. We started in 2009 with our current radios. Motorola ended life on those radios, which means that they're no longer supported. So when one of our radios breaks, there's not a way to repair it. So this new transition to the new technology will allow us to have the new radios, the new technology, as well as the maintenance contract through the life of those radios, which again, I say 10 to 15 years. We had 15 on these new radios the old radios we're currently on, hoping that we get the same out of the newer technology as well.
That's great. A maintenance contract, is that annual?
That is, and that's separate from this. We currently have a maintenance contract with Motorola, and it's anticipated to remain the same cost at this point.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I noticed that in addition to the base cost for the radios, there also seems to be, so this is in their quote, this is lines 4, 5, and 6. There's these lines for smart programming, smart connect, smart locate. They're each for 5 years and, a cost per unit for this. So it seems like there's also, so am I interpreting that correctly, that that's something that's an ongoing cost that we're budgeting for 5 years here, but that's going to be something that's true for however we acquire the other 40 units, and then also something that we're going to have to plan for and budget for all of these new units going forward. Am I interpreting that correctly?
You are. So those are a new subscription-based service that Motorola is offering with this newer technology that was not available with the old radios. So what this allows is currently when an upgrade is required to the radio, we have to physically take the radios to the Prince George's County radio shop. They have to touch each radio and conduct that hardware or firmware upgrade, any type of software programming. This will be able to done remotely over an LTE connection, so basically a cell phone connection. And one of the nice features is that the new radios if you lose the traditional radio reception, it transitions over to a cellular connection. So you can literally use these radios to communicate from California. Not that we would need to do that, but in certain areas where you have poor radio reception or our officers are responding, our allied agencies are responding from outside the area, they're able to leverage that technology. The other piece is that smart locate line 6 that you mentioned. Currently, when our officers are out of their vehicles, we have no way of tracking where they're at if there's an emergency. What this does is actually allows GPS tracking on the radios. So as they transmit, as they're out of the vehicle, if there is an emergency, our dispatchers and communications will be able to instantly see where they're at, if they're in a foot pursuit, if they're out in a remote location searching or something like that, be able to see where they're at. Or if the radio gets lost, allow us to see where that radio is so we can find it.
But so that's a pretty significant yearly cost for each one of those units then, because it looks like if it's 5 years for 720 times, how often do those updates need to happen? I can understand the location being important, but I guess because that looks like that's in addition to the base cost, that's another $432 per unit per year. I think this is a new model of doing things, and I'm not sure I like it. It's the same like subscription models for software, right? You can't just buy software for $120. You have to buy whatever it is, and you pay it every year. I mean, are these all? I'm worried about upgrading all of these and having all of those additional costs after this 5-year term continues. It makes these radios, which are already expensive, even more expensive going forward. I guess I'm just concerned about these extra costs.
Yep. So those subscriptions are built into this contract pricing for those 5 years. From what I'm told is the reason that they did not put it in for longer. One is to keep the initial cost the way it is, but also for the county and the participating agencies to evaluate the value of those products and those subscriptions to be able to determine where we're at. And that 5-year is the outlook on the full implementation of those systems. 2 to 3 years is what the county's looking at, that we're hoping to all be on this new radio system. And again, this is kind of phase 1 of our purchase of these radios over the next year and a half to get to that full implementation.
Yeah, I guess I just think about, depending on how often they need to be updated, even counting for staff time, taking radios down to get updated, you can pay for a lot of hours with that annual cost per unit. So I don't know if that's something. Is this something that we could cancel at some point, and if we decide that it is not as useful as we think it is?
It's possible. The only point that I guess causes me concern is this is the contract that Prince George's County has. They currently have a full radio shop with a full complement of employees, staff, building, technology. And what they're trying to do is to use this newer technology to increase the efficiency of their operation. So to speak, we're playing on their system. We kind of have to go right now with what they say are their guidelines of how we need to operate. So that's why that's there. I'm not saying it won't change in the future, but as of right now, that's where we're at with what their requirements are for operating on their system.
Maybe we need to work with the county to figure out if there's a way to negotiate this, because it's not as if they didn't have a big budget deficit. They just had to close too. They should be looking for more savings in this. Thank you for the added detail.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, those are good points. Just 2 real quick questions before someone needs to make a motion on this, but I'm just wondering, so with that thought about being on the same contract, these radios, are they compatible with what is being used in the District of Columbia? Is it the same model?
Yes.
Thank you.
So all of the agencies around are going to what's called encrypted radio channels. Provides for more secure communication, especially in the age of privacy and protection of information. So in order for us to continue to operate not only on Prince George's County, but to have the interoperability with DC, Virginia, and surrounding county agencies, that's what the security and encryption with this new system is about.
Thank you. And finally, we had a work session with WSSC on the standpipe recently, and we were told that the antenna that public safety had been using is no longer necessary. So with this new system, is that the reason why it is no longer necessary?
So that antenna actually goes back to our radio system prior to 2009. It was kept there as a backup. Public Works actually took our hardware, our old radios, to be able to use the system for their needs. And from discussions with Mr. Kim, Public Works, they're not currently using that and don't anticipate using that. So I believe that's where the discussion came from as far as removing that antenna, as us not having the need for it moving forward.
Okay, thank you very much. Ms. Pope, and then Councilmember Pompey.
So I guess in light of all the crime trends we're having here in the area, it's just very beneficial to be able to communicate with all the surrounding agencies as well. So I would like to move that the council approve the purchase of 30 Motorola APX N70 radios under PG County contract number 34655 from Motorola Solutions, Inc., 500 West Monroe, Chicago, Illinois, 60661 for $262,408.96.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Pompey?
I was just wondering about, so you're purchasing 30, but you said that we have a need for 70 and that you're exploring other options to fund those other 40 radios. So I'm wondering what kinds of things are you exploring? Like, are there federal grants or state grants for these things? And when do you anticipate having all 70 of the same unit online?
So there was a few different options, and I believe either Mr. Samarone or Mr. George might be able to speak better to the current status of the options they're pursuing for that.
The grant funding, we're looking at a variety of sources. One, with our delegates. Delegate Nicole Williams has lent her support to identify public safety funding within the state funds. So we're working with our office on that opportunity. We're looking at various public safety grants, both for the state and federal level, to apply for funding to get these radios. I wanna highlight a point that Deputy Chief White made, that our radios, the current radios are becoming obsolete. So we're sort of in a no-win situation. We have to replace radios, and it just makes sense to buy the next generation of radios. So that creates a sense of urgency for us, that funding for these radios, we have to find them because we have to replace all 70 eventually. So it's a top priority for us as a result of that.
So are we hoping that'll be within like the next year we'll have them all replaced? And will the new radios, the 30 new radios, be able to communicate with the 40 old radios? Will they still be able to?
They're on the same channels and platforms, so they're able to operate in the same ecosystem. In terms of the rollout period, if our radios could last until the county fully transitions to the new system, then we could continue using the old ones. It's really a matter of, will they survive that long for the transition period? I think the transition is 3 to 5 years before the county is fully integrated with this new platform. So what that means for us is that we have 3 to 5 years to fully integrate all 70 radios. So that would be your timeline. So fingers crossed, the current units are going to last as long as the time that we have, but we are prepared to replace them as they become damaged and go offline.
Thanks. That was the reason for my question, because I am hearing the urgency from Deputy Chief White and from you. So we need 70 new radios and we're only getting 30. It's a little concerning.
And if I can just add one more point, one of the challenges everybody knows with supply chain and delays. Right now, Motorola is telling us 9 to 12 months from the time we place an order until we get the radios in hand. So keeping that in mind as well with our current radios, and as our current radios, when one breaks, there's no solution to replace that now except with these new radios. So as the city manager said, we're kind of limping along, fingers crossed that we don't have many go down or break. So that's where we're at right now.
Councilmember McKinney.
Does the 70 radios, will that accommodate any staffing increases that you might need in the future? And if it doesn't, I don't know if like this plan takes into account like bulk pricing. So the more you get, the less the number goes down, or does that not, is that not built into the price?
The pricing, sorry, Tim, I don't know if you want to jump in. I was going to jump in on the number of units.
Yeah, you can go ahead.
Okay, on the number of units, we have 30 frontline radios that we need to have up and running at all times. We have 54 officer positions. So the 7 radios covers all of our officers and other support staff, the chief, deputy chief, and others. But we need those 30 front lines working and running all the time. In terms of bulk pricing, the benefit of jumping into the county contract is that you get that cooperative purchasing power of all the municipalities jumping on one contract. So that's already been negotiated into the contract and anticipated that there's this group savings in the contract. I don't know what, 70 radios compared to the county's hundreds, how much of an impact we would have on our individual purchasing power. Chief, Deputy Chief, did I miss anything?
Yeah, no, you hit the points. That 70 will sustain us for our current allocations. It also takes into account our animal control, having their radios on our system, parking enforcement, our civilian employees such as CIT, as well as backup radios in our communications section should our hardwired radios in the police communications go down, as well as having radios, for if one gets damaged, we have to send it back under warranty, having radios on hand that we can immediately swap out during that time. So if there were any staffing increases as far as civilian staff, police officer staff, these 70 radios would be able to sustain us. That's what we've operated with and continues to serve us well.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? The motion passes. I'm sorry. Item number 12. Item number 12 is award of purchase license plate reading camera system. And this is from a memo forwarded by Chief Bowers. The city has experienced a recent increase in reported crime during the last several years. The police department is proposing to add license plate reading cameras in multiple locations to help the prevention and detection of crime activity. The implementation of the license plate readers, the LPR camera system, a highly effective technology, would significantly bolster the ability to enhance security and address criminal activities. The system, which is equipped with optical character recognition, can automatically capture license plate information from vehicles passing through designated areas. The captured data will be cross-referenced with law enforcement databases, enabling us to identify stolen vehicles, locate suspects, and track down vehicles associated with criminal activity. This is from the memo. Staff is recommending a proposal from Alliance Technology Group for a total cost of $174,498.70 to install 14 cameras. The funding source is American Rescue Plan Act funds designated by council for this purpose. So there's a couple of memos. Chief Bowers or Deputy Chief White, would you like to talk briefly about this proposal?
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and Council.
Good evening.
So what you have in front of you is this proposal for license plate reading camera system. It also includes the installation of these cameras at various locations across the city, which I can give you those locations as well. Power supplies, so it's all of the infrastructure to install, though that's why the cost is substantially higher. But it does include infrastructure, licensing costs, and most importantly, it includes the cost associated with transmitting the data to the Maryland Analysis Center for storage and auditing purposes, and that's an important part of the privacy piece of this. One of the keys in Maryland law is how the data is stored and audited. So we don't store any LPR data here on site. We have several existing mobile LPR systems, and all of that data is transmitted and stored at the state level. And then to get the data back, you have to actually submit a written request to the state, and that's how all of the use of that data is tracked and audited. So these cameras will allow us to do a couple of different things, as I outlined. First, it'll allow us to be proactive in our approach to addressing activities in neighborhoods by identifying vehicles of interest or stolen vehicles as they pass through these camera systems, which will allow officers to respond in real time to areas in which potentially crime could be committed or stolen vehicles are located. It'll also allow us on the other side to work on investigations. When we have these locations already laid out, if a crime occurs within a proximity of those camera systems and a vehicle was used, we'd be able to go back to those cameras and scan the data to determine what vehicles came through and if they are a subject of interest. In addition to the LPR cameras, they also have a situational camera attached to them, which just gives you sort of a picture of the area that the vehicles are passing through. So you would see, in addition to the car, you would see it's a red pickup truck, it's a green four-door sedan. And so then if somebody were to tell us they witnessed a crime occur and the people were driving a red pickup truck and it had a ladder in the back, we could query the system for red pickup trucks and it would find all the red pickup trucks that had a ladder in the back of them, and it would display them to us across our entire system. So that's a really, really powerful tool, right? And like anything else, it's just a tool. It's not going to be an end-all, be-all, but it is a tool for us to help bring down some active crime and allow us to really investigate crime that has occurred. We have identified a number of locations across the city in which preliminarily we believe will be the most effective locations, and I'll give you those quickly. The first would be at the entrance to the Greenbelt Station Parkway. We would have multiple cameras along Breezewood, at Cherrywood, Edmonston, and Spring Hill. We'd have cameras on Cherrywood and Cherrywood Court, Hanover and Mandan, Hanover and Greenbelt Road, and Mandan and Greenbelt Road as well. So a lot of key intersections that serve as kind of one way in, one way out of various neighborhoods. And we think those are areas that are easily deployable with these camera systems and will provide us the most information back to us. The other thing is, once the cameras are deployed, if we discover that that's an ineffective location, we'll be able to take down that site and relocate it someplace else. So the systems are movable. They're not portable like a trailer would be portable, but they're relocatable. So if we put one up and we discover it's not effective in its location, we can then move where it is. So we really think this is an exciting way to enhance our ability of what we currently do.
Thank you. I get the feeling, Ms. Pope, you're about to make a motion.
I am, but I have a question first.
Yes, ma'am.
I know we have a few already, these LPRs. How many do we have currently?
I believe we currently have 2 mobile units, which are attached to our vehicles.
And so we have 2. And how well, I was going to ask how successful are they? So you kind of already talked a little bit about that, but maybe you have a few specifics for our city.
I don't have any statistics with me, but we know that generally speaking, LPRs will increase the recovery of stolen vehicles by about 30 to 35%. And so that's the biggest one. There's a lot of individual case studies that you can find on IACP, and they do a regular report that talk about individual success stories, particularly when it comes to solving violent crime, locating missing persons. So again, we could put a tag number in if we had a missing person, and if that vehicle drove through any of our locations, it would queue up. The other thing that's important is because all the data goes to the state of Maryland, that if it was an outside agency that also was looking for something and that passed through one of our locations, they would be able to get that information back from the state, and then we would be able to help that agency locate the person that's missing. So it has multiple purposes. We think it's a very effective tool. And I don't have any statistics for you. We can produce some based on our current program now.
No, I just wanted maybe a few examples. But before I make my motion, so I didn't hear Lake Crest Drive on your list. So I was wondering about that.
It is currently not on our list. But again, we're going to study the effectiveness of these locations. And then as we go forward, if we need to add a location in the future, that's something that we can talk about. Once we get the kind of the base program down, then if we need to relocate or add, we can do that to the system.
Okay, well, I'd like to encourage you to take Lakecrest Drive in consideration, please, because there's one way out and one way in, and it's, there's some issues. But now I want to make my motion that we approve the proposal from Alliance Technology Group for a total cost of $174,498.70 to install 14 cameras. And as I read here, ARPA funds already designated for this purpose.
Is there a second? I'll second the motion so that we can have a discussion about this proposal. And I know there's a number of council members who have questions. I have a couple of questions. I think we have people online as well. Who was first? Mayor Pro Tem?
I think Ms. Pompey was first.
As far as the data and the camera goes, I'm wondering who can access it and how long it's actually stored.
So the data is stored within the camera for 30 days before it's transmitted instantaneously to the state, but it's stored within the camera for 30 days, and it'll be accessible by those people that are given the permission to access it, which would be an investigator, somebody that had need for the data. The other piece is that the data is controlled in terms of what that access is for. So that person would have to be conducting an investigation, include into their request to see the data a case number. So we do make sure we monitor and audit what's happening with the data.
And as far as moving the cameras, is that something that the city will do, or will the contractor move the cameras?
The contractor will do it for us.
Okay, thank you.
Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, and I think, thank you for listing off the locations, but I think it would be very helpful to have that in writing, and just so that I was writing down a few things, but I can't type that fast, because I think that is going to be something that people are going to want to know. And I think part of this can be a deterrence effect. If people know that the cameras are there, then we're not necessarily trying to, that can be useful too, if people know where the cameras are and they're sort of on thoroughfares. So I guess I think the other thing that it would be, if the data storage and usage is to a certain extent governed by Maryland state rules about such things, I think it would also be really helpful to know. I mean, I understand the idea of you can't access it without having an investigation. You have to submit for that. But like retention, okay, so it stores in the camera for 30 days, but what's the long-term storage of this data? What is, and if it's going into the state system, then it's not just us using it. I think I would like to have a little bit more information about sort of the long-term usage of that data. How long is it kept in the state systems in general? What are some of the other uses that other people might be, I mean, you mentioned at least one of them, but I think because by putting it in the state system I can see the advantages of it, but we are also in a sense losing some control over the data. And I just think I want to understand the implications of that a little bit more. So those are kind of the two bigger things. And one smaller question, I noticed that on the invoice, it actually talks about installing. So this is under the sort of on the first page of the invoice from Alliance Technology Group under the pole solutions. It actually talks about installing 20 cameras, but I think you said there's only 14.
Right. Some of the LPR cameras are the 14 LPRs, but the other 6 are they're small dome cameras that go underneath of the LPR, so
okay.
you get a picture of the car that goes through.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't being charged that we weren't being listed as being charged for installation of more cameras than we were actually getting.
Well, thank you. I have a couple of questions. Just number one, so we've had 2 of these license plate readers installed on police vehicles, and we've had them for quite some time, for 7 or 8 years. Is that correct?
I believe that's correct. Yeah, I mean, if Deputy Chief White's still online, he could give you a more historical date on how long we've had those cameras.
I think the first one, it may have actually been under Governor O'Malley's. Is that correct, Assistant Chief White? How long have these the 2 been in operation?
Yeah, that's correct. It was under Governor O'Malley. It was a state grant that it was implemented, and you probably remember he did a press conference down here as we were one of the first agencies to implement those. So we do have some that are still in operation. And just to kind of follow up on the chief's point, so when our data gets transmitted to the state maintains retention of that data for 1 year. At that 1 year mark, all of that data is purged unless it's been saved as part of a criminal case as evidence, if that lends a little bit more. And the reason that it's so beneficial for us to transmit that information to the state and allow them to maintain it is, as the chief said, the guidelines for accepting requests and evaluating those for release. The state police at the Maryland Coordination Analysis Center, they take the burden of that security retention and maintaining the security of that data. So anybody that makes that request, instead of it coming to us and us having to determine the validity of that investigation, the Maryland State Police do that, as they have the auspice to be able to actually verify that it is a criminal case, what it's for, and be able to make those decisions on that release of that data. So it takes that onus off of us and liability.
So just following up on the city's experience, our experience with the two license plate readers that have actually, we've had them for, I don't know, about 15 years, 14, 15 years, if the first one was under the O'Malley administration. So just in terms of reliability, and you just talked about the functionality of just sharing the data with the state database. Have we been doing that the entire time?
We have been doing that the entire time. Again, the city does not want to maintain that data and the security that comes with that. So we've been transmitting it through the Maryland State Police our entire time. And one of the things that's really clear, and the chief made this point earlier, is the LPR is a tool. It's not an end all be all. So there are requirements within our policy and within the state that requires verification of, just because you get a hit saying that this tag number was read, that's not probable cause. That's not any type of authority to take action. It's simply a pointer to say, hey, this may be related to this, and then requires a manual effort from a police officer and investigator to go in and investigate to see if it is actually verified that that tag matches, and before any type of action is taken.
So I just wanted to try and probe just a little bit. So with these two that have been in operation for 14, 15 years, how accurate are they now? Given these new units are probably the character recognition software is probably much more accurate or more refined than it was initially, and I imagine that there have been significant software updates over the years. But the hits that come in, number one, how accurate are they? And number two, I'm just wondering, in working with our sister municipalities, are College Park or New Carrollton or Bowie or Laurel, do they also have these units, and are we working in coordination with them in Riverdale Park?
Yeah, so our allied agencies do use fixed mounted LPRs. The state police has had them. They call it the Iron Curtain that goes all around the Beltway, both in DC, Maryland, and Virginia, of LPRs. And when I was in patrol, I was assigned an LPR on my vehicle. So I have, granted, it was a while ago, but firsthand experience with them. And again, it requires, when you talk about the validity or the accuracy of the captures, it's gotten better over time. I can't put a number on it, but again, it's like any tool that we use for anything we do. It gives you an alert, and you have to, as an investigator or an officer operating, look and see, okay, does this tag number match what the hit's telling me? Again, I don't want to give a percentage number, but the number of errors back when I was using it were very few. And again, you look. When you get a hit, you look at what the hit's telling you, you look at the video, and you say that is a confirmed match, and then you run that tag number through our dispatch so they can run it through NCIC and say, yes, in fact, that vehicle is a wanted stolen vehicle or is associated with a missing person or a wanted person. And we have had several high-profile incidents throughout our history with LPRs in locating some critical missing, some homicide suspects, both locally and from out of state. So the tool, it is a valuable tool, and I think that it would be very beneficial to have what we have in those vehicle-mounted LPRs, to have those operating 24/7 in fixed locations and bringing the value and benefits across the city.
So just a couple more questions. So, and Chief, so these would be operating the fixed locations. They're only focused on the public right-of-way on public streets. They're not, they couldn't be used on a vehicle, public safety vehicle going through a private, on a private street, like a parking lot for
So-
private development.
So the systems that we will have are fixed systems focused on public streets, yes.
Okay. And finally, and I know other council members have comments as well as the public, but I'm just wondering, once again, about the aesthetics of how are these going to look? Are they the big boxy things with a pole with a red and blue light on top?
Currently, as designed, there are no lights on the top. You will probably not notice most of them. They'll either be mounted to existing infrastructure. The vast majority of these we're trying to mount to existing infrastructure like telephone poles and things like that, and working with Pepco to get that accomplished. There will be a handful of sites where we have to put in a pole. Most prominently at the entrance to Greenbelt Station, there's no existing infrastructure to mount to, so we'll have to put in a pole at the entrance there. But all the others will fit to existing infrastructure. The cameras are rather small, so you really won't notice most of them unless they have a solar panel that's powering them.
Will they have solar panels that are powering them?
The ones that are freestanding will have solar panels. The ones that we mount to Pepco poles will draw power.
Will we be paying rent to Pepco?
We're still working on the details of that, but there's no rent.
Okay. Mr. Roberts?
Thank you, I appreciate it. I want to, just mention that personally, it's obvious to me that cameras have been totally ineffective as a deterrent. There is no deterrent. I mean, we have more cameras now, not only in the Greenbelt area, but in the DC area than we've ever had before. And the crime is worse than it has ever been. So I don't know where the deterrent is there. There is no deterrent. And so I think it's a waste of our tax dollars, and it provides only a false sense of security for our people. So I think we need to go down a different road, if you will, as to how we protect our community, because it clearly is not an effective way to reduce crime or to prevent crime. It's only good for going back and looking and maybe, solving some crime. But I think that what we're getting out of it is far less than what we're putting into it. And personally, I don't want to live in a community or a society where we have to be watched 24 hours a day on every street that we have in order to say, oh, we're going to be safe. Because we're not going to be safe. We're going to be less safe. Because for one thing, even the police are going to think that we're more safe. And so maybe they're not going to be quite as diligent as we should be. So I think this, as I said, I think this is a waste of our tax dollars, and we need to have a better way of protecting our community. Thank you.
Councilmember McKinney.
I have a couple of questions. One is probably more of an overarching question of, it sounds like you are in favor of these, and my question is more around why this strategy and this tool versus something else, because it is quite a big price tag. So especially there is some data, but there isn't a lot of concrete data. So why this one in particular?
So these types of camera systems are a tool, but a force multiplying tool. We have 53 police officers on the organization. At any given time, there's 6 to 10 officers, working. They can't be everywhere. Residents can't be everywhere. And so the more opportunity you have to see a location And the more opportunity you have to interdict into something, the more successful you can be. So you can use this as a tool, much like we use other crime analysis tools, to help work on particular areas or locations of interest. And so, like anything, it provides us additional capabilities, right? So I can't park a police officer at 9 different locations 24/7, but for a one-time cost, this is a one-time hit. It's a 5-year licensing agreement, so we don't have to revisit that for the next 5 years. All of the hardware is warranted for 10 years. And so this in comparison to actual salaried costs is much less.
Okay. So just adding on to that, because one of the things I see in this is that there's a annual support fee that would be paid after 2 years. So I'm just wondering, and I think you said if there's no additional annual cost beyond this initial purchase,
Right.
Except for this annual fee?
And that's the annual fee for the licensing to send the data to MCAC.
Okay. And then this might be a very naive, non-police person question, but how portable are these? So if people know that they're there, could literally someone go and take it
No.
and then be able to get to the data? So I preface that by
you would not be able to get them down. They'll be securely mounted.
Okay.
And so it would take the contractor to come and take them down. Plus they'll be high enough off the ground that you would have to have a ladder or some way to climb up the pole
Or
to
be
get
Spider-Man.
them.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll be high enough that nobody will be able to take them down.
Okay, thank you.
Well, thank you. We've got some comments from the public in the room. I know there were a few comments that were sent by email earlier, and I think I see the individual online. Would you like to read those, Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, so this was from Ginger Archibald, looking for more information on 3 different points. 1, data demonstrating proof of the key benefits of an LPR system, purportedly enhance public safety, crime deterrence, and improve data analysis and reporting. I have not seen any proof of these benefits that has not come directly from a company selling LPR technology. 2, information about where in the city these would be deployed. 3, any discussion about the privacy implications of tracking citizens traveling through within Greenbelt. Without this information, it seems premature to allocate money for this purpose. And I think we've addressed some of these, but maybe you can add any details to that, Chief.
Yeah, and I think the question of privacy is a big one, and I think that's everybody's primary concern. Is I drive through this, what happens to my data? Is the government keeping track of me? Can somebody come back later and try to get the data? And that's why we send the data. We don't store it, right? We move it to the state where it's restricted access, and we have strong policies. We have a current policy in place for a license plate reading program. We will update that policy. And I'll present that back to council once we have it updated. You'll get that copy so you can take a look at it and see what provisions we've included to make sure we maintain residents' privacy and the security of that data.
And I think maybe the idea of tracking, it's not so much tracking license plates. I mean, it could hit off if there's a specific call out for a particular license plate for a purpose, or it's a query for a specific investigative
Exactly.
purpose.
So the system, like nobody's keeping track of where Mr. Solmeron is driving his car or where I'm driving my car. If the vehicle is entered in to the database as a vehicle of interest, then it would come up on our system. Or in the investigation of a crime or a missing person, you would make an inquiry into the system, and then you would get that information back.
I do think we need to keep an eye on Mr. Summeron's car. This is just me.
No, that was the only one that I saw that came in via email. I don't see any hands raised right now. If anybody wants to comment, they could add into the chat or raise their hand, but I don't see any other comments online. And I didn't see any others come in via email besides that one.
Okay, Mr. Rand?
Hi, Bob Rand, 19 Ridge Road. So I have no comment on the enforcement benefits of license plate readers, but I do want to point out there are potential equity concerns if the program disproportionately targets neighborhoods that are predominantly people of color. For example, parts of Greenbelt West and East are 85 to 95% people of color compared with sections of Greenbelt which are mostly white. I understand that there are differences in neighborhood density which complicate the equation. The population density of some Franklin Park neighborhoods are more than 2 to 3 times the density of parts of Old Greenbelt. and I'm sure the traffic density complicates the equation even further. However, I encourage the Greenbelt Police Department to be transparent about the equitable use of the readers so that the amount of data collected in various neighborhoods or on various roadways is proportional to the density only, not to racial demographics. I don't see any policy statements regarding precautions to ensure equitable deployment of the program. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Chief, would you like to, could you comment on the selection criteria for the sites?
Yeah, absolutely. So what we used initially is just some crime data. We took a look at our regular crime analysis maps and used that data to pick those locations in which we see the most crime. And so that's been our initial selection for those locations.
Thank you. Other comments? Mr. Orleans?
Thank you. Bill Orleans still. First, I would like to suggest that this addendum to their contract, their Alliance Technologies Group living wage and income position statement, might be a fine precedent for all such vendors' contracts in the future. Among other things, I won't have to, or anyone won't have to get up and ask about the living wage policy of a respective vendor. So if a statement could be addended to every potential contract, that would be great. Second, I heard reference from a couple of people to a list of potential locations that the license plate readers that we're about to purchase for $175,000 would be located. There's no such list in the package that I have. If there was a list provided of potential locations, I'd like to see it. Lastly, the memorandum suggests in the opening sentence that in recent years there has been a growing need for advanced tools and technologies to assist law enforcement in effectively enhancing security and addressing criminal activities. I might be willing to concede to that. The question is, really, are they effective? And I think Council Member Roberts raised a good point, and I would ask Council and City Management maybe to address other jurisdictions in the state of Maryland who have such advanced technologies, whether or not they're getting a good bang for their buck. At some point, the exaggerated capital costs of these new technologies might outweigh the potential for adding some actual living police officers to our roles, which would be more effective both in combating crime, but in appeasing the concerns about crime that residents have. I would like to suggest that we reach out to MML jurisdictions and we reach out to NLC jurisdictions around the country and the two organizations themselves to find out if there's been a study done by NLC members, which would include, of course, MML members, as to the viability of spending all this money on all this advanced technology, and maybe it would be better in the alternative to do something else. Thank you.
Well, thank you, thank you. Chief, would you like to respond to that just in terms of the precedent and the just the data which sort of supports the use of this kind of technology over hiring more police officers?
So just to start with, we're not the only jurisdiction that would have this program. Other jurisdictions do, including the counties, the state, other municipalities. The city of Mount Rainier is going through the same process as we are right now, implementing this system. So we're not the only ones doing it. There's a number of agencies looking to do it. And again, one of the things that we've strived for as an organization is to try to find ways to make ourselves more efficient and more effective with the staffing that we have. And while we could always find a need for people, finding technology that can make those people that we have more effective and more efficient is what's the kind of the driving force behind this. We know that the systems can be effective, and it's a matter of then putting them in the right position, giving our people that we have the tools to be more efficient and more effective. And I think that in conjunction, agree with Mr. Roberts, it's not going to solve everything in by itself, but it is a tool in conjunction with the other tools that we have and the people that we have working as a holistic idea that will allow us to prevent crime, respond to more crime more rapidly, and investigate more effectively.
Yeah, I think if I could paraphrase, Mr. Roberts spoke on the topic of deterrence as opposed to being able to solve crimes. And I guess you could make the same argument about speed cameras, where the speed cameras are not necessarily a deterrent to some people who are driving around and don't seem to care, but they are helpful in solving these crimes. So one thing, Chief, you mentioned the concern that I think we all have about privacy. You mentioned updating the policy, the general orders. So how soon can you have that? That's been something we've talked about for a while.
Right.
And
So it would be something that's completed prior to the project becoming operational. We still have a number of planning stages to work our way through. Now, obviously, we need to get permission and get through the PEPCO process, and that can take a few weeks to get done. So before any construction starts or any dollars are spent, we will make sure we have the policy to you. Give me 6 to 8 weeks, and I'll have a solid policy over to you.
Will you commit to sort of working with PSAC to kind of, in going through that iteration, will you work with PSAC?
Absolutely.
Okay, and Mayor Pro Tem?
Yeah, I think related to that, I think I would like to see a sort of a for council's consumption, but also public consumption, more explanation of this reasoning that you've talked about, but have it in writing about the reasoning for the placement, addressing the equity concerns, addressing the privacy concerns, addressing how the data is, like, just in sort of plain language explaining the process of how the data is used, but something that can be used as a tool to explain to the public how this is going into place. I think I'd like to see that before, I'm willing to vote for it tonight, but I will want to see that happen. My other question is, because we were talking about the timeline on the radios, how long have they said, do we have the same long delay on
We do
this
not have
equipment?
that same delay.
Okay.
We'll be able to, once we have the sites and the PEPCO stuff resolved, we'll be able to move much quicker after that.
Thank you. Ms. Pope?
Yeah, I just want to say, yes, I do agree with Mayor Pro Tem. We need to make our explanation a little bit broad so people understand what this is all about, because there are some concerns and questions, and of course, we need to answer them. But I also do want to point out that, our Greenbelt Police Department always has been exemplary and has always been provided the most valuable and best tools possible in order for them to do an excellent job for our residents. So I just want to make sure that we keep on that track. Just like I think a few years ago, I think we were one of the first departments who had the bulletproof, was it the doors? So, and things like that we need to advocate for. I think especially in these times where, crime every day, you see it on TV, we have it here in our own city. It happens more and more brazen every time you hear about it. We just had the park, that was a big issue, and that was a terrible incident. So I think, what tools we have available, we need to provide to them in order to keep our residents safe, keep everyone safe in our city, and that's one thing that I would like to do.
Thank you.
Councilmember Niesel.
Thank you. My question, is about privacy. I know that these are license plate readers, but then each of them also has that dome camera beneath it.
Mm-hmm.
Are they always recording? Are they only recording when they're triggered by a car passing by? Is a pedestrian going to be picked up on that camera? There are just a lot of privacy concerns that I have around all of this, which I know we've touched on a bit.
Right. So the LPRs will only capture the tag that drives through. So they're on, but they're not looking for anything other than that alphanumeric tag. The other camera is always on, yes.
And that can always be accessed any moment in time if the police department says that there was a crime that happened in that vicinity?
We would be able to go back and check the camera, yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Okay, Mr. Samanon.
Mr. Mayor, I have a response to your question about PSAC waiting in. On March 15, PSAC sent an email to council with the recommendations. Among one of those recommendations was a recommendation related to license plate readers. I can read the recommendation or the entirety of the statement.
Could you just briefly summarize the recommendation, please?
Sure. They had some concerns how the LPR had been used to trigger stolen vehicle alerts. One particular case that PSAC referenced in their recommendations, and I'll read this verbatim. This problem has reached the attention of the Supreme Court, where the Supreme Court recently upheld a 83-year-old woman's right to sue the police department. Supreme Court sides with 83-year-old woman forced to her knees during traffic stop. in quotes, USA Today, December 11th, 2023, USA Today. The officers who pulled Brown over thought the car she was driving had been stolen. Mistakenly, it turns out, and following their protocol, they drew their handgun, handcuffed Brown, and forced her to her knees, end quotation. The recommendation based on this incident, which is the triggering of stolen vehicles, in this particular incident, the system that recorded the stolen vehicle had not reflected that vehicle had been recovered. Updated, right. So the recommendation for PSAC in this instance is that traffic enforcement training of officers includes awareness that there is a periodic but persistent problem of delays in the administration of updating of police documentation when a stolen car has been returned to the owner.
Thank you. That's helpful. Those are concerns that have been articulated tonight to some extent, but clearly PSAC has been thinking about this and the general orders for quite some time. Hey, there's a motion on the floor. Ms. McKinney?
I have one more question. So going back to Mayor Pro Tem's question, if the runway time to sort of order these and then sort of get them into play is less than the other item that we voted on, is it possible to kind of answer some of these questions that we've brought up today in order to just get that out to the public before making that vote? I'm just trying to understand, making sure that we can get as much information out to the public about the locations, privacy, and everything like that. And we've crossed kind of all the T's. I don't know how long that will take and if that will delay your ordering, I know it's a domino effect. So.
It would delay starting the process. How long it would depend on how long it takes us to put everything together and get to you. If it would take me 4 to 5 weeks to get it all together, it would push us off by that amount of time.
As I understood the implementation timeline, we're looking at a 6-month implementation time from ordering to having these up and running. The only pressure that we would have would be that we will want, since we're using ARPA funds, that we will want to encumber the funds ended by December of this year. So to directly address your question, we could wait until December to take action, as long as we encumber those funds to order that equipment. That would put us another 6 months out. So that we're looking at a year. We could wait a year until we have all items figured out to address the concerns.
Okay, so let's go ahead and take a vote. And I don't think this needs to be a roll call vote. So all in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
No. Okay, I believe that passes 4-3. Is that correct? So there are some serious concerns, and those that have been articulated by council and the public. Chief, I would expect you to address those. And you said 6 to 8 weeks you'd be able to.
I think that's a final product, but I will get drafts to you within the next few weeks.
And a map of the locations.
I think what I'll do, if it would please council, I can produce kind of an information sheet that we can publish on our website that would talk about the benefits of the program, locations, sort of a kind of a one-stop shop on the web page where people could go to get information about the project. That would include all the information that you've asked for tonight, and I could get that posted up probably within the next 2 weeks, and then finish the policy after that.
Yeah, and your commitment to work with PSAC a bit, the locations you've identified 14, but there might be some good ideas out there of other locations, or,
yep.
or as Mr. Rand has said, there might be some modifications. So, between, if it's going to take 6 to 8 months to actually get them, to order them and receive them, then there's time to actually really work on some of these details and be a little more specific.
Yep.
Okay, now I've got your commitment.
Absolutely, yes, sir.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
So that motion does carry. Hey, at this time, let's move on to item number 13, and that is replacement trucks, 264 refuse compactor and 112 rollback. The need for a replacement of Public Works Unit 112, a 1993 rollback And Unit 264, a 2015 refuse packer, was presented to City Council and was approved for purchase using American Rescue Plan Act funding, ARPA funding. The purchase of the replacement of the rollback staff has identified State of Maryland statewide contract BPO 001B1600050 for a 2025 international rollback at the cost of $143,613.67. And for the replacement of the refuge packer, staff has identified State of Maryland statewide contract BPO number 001B4600147 for a 2025 Mack refuge packer at a cost of $312,405. Additionally, the outfitting of both trucks with warning lights and city stickering for an additional $5,000. Mr. Ken or Brian Townsend, could you speak on these briefly? So, in the comments in the agenda, we've touched on a couple of items where council has already approved the funding through its ARPA allocations, and you're sort of getting back to us with the actual contract. And just for my edification, my benefit, I'm not really familiar what a packer is. What is a packer and what is a rollback?
Okay, so
I don't know if any other council members
Asked the same thing because I didn't know what a rollback truck was either.
I think I know, but can you enlighten us?
So the Packer is a refuse truck or trash truck. That truck is used every single day and it's under a lot of stress. These trucks that we have right now, we have a constant, I would say, on an average of out of the month, we have a truck down. So we have exactly 4 trucks. 3 trucks go out constantly throughout the week. So that one backup truck is always being used because of maintenance. The rollback is actually a tow truck, and as you see, it's 31 years old. It's used, but not nearly as much as the trash truck. So that's why the longevity on how long we've had it. So, but now after 31 years, it's time to retire that thing. It's pretty old. Stick shift, matter of fact.
Stick shift, huh?
Yeah.
Hey, so are these diesel fuel, or just in terms of purchasing 2025? Have you to what extent did you look around to make sure that these were the most environmentally sensitive vehicles that we could possibly find that are available now?
So as you see, is especially with the rollback, it's 31 years old. We don't replace that very often, and we probably won't replace it for another 30 years. The technology for electric, because we did look at those options, we went down to different ones. We actually went to Baltimore and looked at an electric trash truck at one point in time. But the infrastructure and everything else was too expensive, and also we felt that they're still on the experimental stage as far as that's concerned, and not as reliable as that yet. And with the cost and longevity of what we need these vehicles for, I think it's a big gamble to put that much money into something and invest in something until we know it's guaranteed that what our outcome would be.
Member Tim.
Yeah, I appreciate that you did look at the EV options. I think in future, I think anytime you present to us something where you have a recommendation and you've looked into the EV options and decided, and those reasoning, I would be really helpful to see that reasoning as part of the memo, that we looked at this and this is why we think this is the right one, because this is, I mean, there's just not a lot of information here, and I think you all do a good job of doing your due diligence at looking for those options. I'd like to see that reflected more in the documentation that we receive. So, we don't have to ask about it because you've already told us about it in the memo. So that's one of the things that I wanted. I was going to ask what a rollback truck was. I figured out what the refuge one, that one was a little more obvious. But I guess one thought I had was we did get, there was an EPA heavy vehicles grant application or funding application that came through recently. And I'm wondering if this might be the sort of vehicle that could be covered by that to look into. Obviously, that sounds like the rollback vehicle is maybe not one that we replace very often, but it sounds like if we've got 4 trash trucks, and I don't know, how old are the other trash trucks?
So they vary in age, but then there next year will be another trash truck that's up for replacement. We do them on a 8 to 10 year basis, depending on what their service records are. And then normally what we do is have to replace one. The oldest truck that we keep on for as the backup, we would then retire that one and send it to an auction, which goes back into the general fund.
So is this one the oldest? So is this one the oldest one that we have? This 20?
No, this is not the oldest. This vehicle is the next to be replaced on our replacement list for equipment and vehicles. So it's actually, we would be replacing it without ARPA funds. So I think this is a good opportunity to use that and to alleviate some of the budget.
Well, and I think that then if that's something, if we're going to be looking to replace another one soon, then I think we should look into that EPA grant and see because if we're getting a grant for it, then even if it's more expensive, it's not coming out of our regular budget. So, but yeah, but do please, when you do this due diligence and you go in and find options and explain the reasoning why you think this one is still the best option, that would be helpful.
Moving forward, I'll do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Pompey.
Ms. Weaver already touched on this, but I had prior to the meeting looked into that EPA heavy duty grant, and refuse trucks do qualify for that grant. The trucks and also the infrastructure needed to support them. So I think, as we are, as Mayor Pro Tem Weaver said, as we're going forward, as we know that we're going to have to replace a truck next year, I think we should really investigate that grant, and because it could defray our costs. I think it covers, I don't know, I think I can't recall exactly, but it was like $200-something thousand up to 70%. So it could defray our costs pretty significantly next year.
I just sent it to you, so you can.
Mr. Samaran, or Mr. George.
The big issue with that, we did look at the grant. Kerry took a good look at that. The only issue with that grant is you have to buy 3 vehicles at a time. And between 3 and 4, and if we went with the EVs, those are $600,000 to $700,000 each. The other thing is the EVs that we looked at that Brian has shown me. You can't get the 25 cubic yard ones that we typically buy. They're smaller. They're the 18s, so it's a smaller truck size, and it's considerably more expensive. But for this particular grant, we need to buy 3. So what we are looking at, I know Brian's been looking at, is could we combine a trash truck with a front loader and other heavy equipment? So as we look at making the next trash truck purchase, we'll look at, are there other heavy equipment purchases that we need, not trash trucks, but other things that would qualify in that program. So that is something that Kerry's tracking. We love the grant. It's a great idea, but it's the fact that if we wanted to get a larger size bus, could you get a Packer, a larger size bus, and a front loader all at the same time, then you'd meet the criteria of the grant. So that's something we're looking at.
Could we partner with other cities who are also looking to replace their trash trucks? Does the rules?
I don't know the answer to that question, but that is something we can certainly look into.
Okay, thank you very much. I want to make the motion. So I'd like to move that we purchase one 2025 International MV 607 rollback using State Maryland statewide contract BPO 001B1600501 from Beltway International LLC at 1800 Sulphur Springs Road, Baltimore, Maryland 21227 for $143,613.67, and one 2025 Mack Refuge Packer using State Maryland statewide contract BPO 001B46001747 from Potomac Truck Center 3371 Kenilworth Avenue, Hyattsville, Maryland 20781 for $312,405, and also outfitting both vehicles with lights, warming lights, and stickering for $5,000. Ms. Pope is seconded. Let's see, we've got. This online question. Let's take that first.
Yeah, I just have to get there we go. Mr. Harmon, you have permission to speak.
I'm sorry? No, Harmon.
Harmon.
Mr. Harmon. It's
someone online.
We're just promoting somebody on Zoom so that they can speak. Mr. Harmon. Not Hurley, Harmon. Yes. But it doesn't look like a hand is up.
Yeah, his hand is up.
City.
I've given him.
Hand is up. I can see the hand. I wonder if he can hear us.
Let's go to Mr. Orleans. Mr. Orleans.
Thank you, Bill Orleans. Bill, I don't know, it's been 10 or 12 years since it was first proposed to Greenbelt Council that one of our departments should be seeking an alternatively powered vehicle. The police department, public works, recreation, I think maybe once or twice. In recent years, of course, Greenbelt has procured electric vehicles, light vehicles, for various purposes. But in the past, Public Works would say, much as Mr. Townsend did tonight, it's too experimental. I don't know, certainly. I don't know anything. But I, for years now, have seen references to heavy-duty vehicles and also police vehicles that are said to perform very well, and they are propelled by electricity. I don't know if the specifications that of the vehicles that I've seen reference to would meet the needs and specifications and needs of the city of Greenbelt, but I suspect they might. And at some point, some jurisdiction somewhere has to determine that it's going to be an early adoption of new technology. And this, of course, is new non-surveillance technology, just new technology. And procurement works in strange ways. It's very secretive. It's much like Greenbelt Council. It's very secretive. But procurement, if there's an entity that's offering an experimental vehicle and they want to get it sold and get it out there, get it in use, you can work out an agreement with that entity that we will purchase at the full price your vehicle, but it's got to meet certain terms and standards and expectations that you're suggesting it can meet over years. So that if Greenbelt Council decided to early adopt a heavy-duty, a trash truck, a large, otherwise smelly diesel-fueled trash truck that would run on electricity, we could probably do it in such a way as it would not cost us if it failed to perform as the vendor, the seller, the manufacturer said that it would. At some point, rather than maybe saying Berwyn Heights, let Berwyn Heights go first, or College Park, or New Carrollton, or Edgecombe, Maryland, or some other place, at some point, Greenbelt Council ought to live up to the sustainable sense it has of itself and become an early adopter under the terms that we would not suffer if the vehicle failed to perform as the manufacturer and the vendor said that it would.
Okay, are there any other comments?
No, and it was a mistaken hand raise online.
Okay,
So
okay. Well, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Okay, 1 against. Let us now move to item number 14, which is an authorization for City Manager Samarone to execute contract with Next Day Concrete for head wall and pipe culvert repairs on Crescent Road. And there's a memo from Brian Kim along with a contract quote. And staff has identified a damaged head wall, culvert, and storm drain piping that requires immediate replacement. This infrastructure failure has resulted in the ineffectiveness of the entire structure system, leading to significant soil sediment erosion downstream. After thorough evaluation and consideration of 2 proposals, they recommend entering into a contract with Next Day Concrete. The proposal offers the best value for the city, considering both cost effectiveness and the capacity to address the project promptly. Staff is seeking council's authorization for the city manager to execute the attached contract from Next Day Concrete. The total cost of the concrete amounts to $33,800, and the source funding would come from the American Rescue Plan Act restricted funds. Mr. Samarone or Mr. Kim, can you just quickly answer just a couple of questions? Can you describe where the culvert failure, where the head wall and culvert are located?
It is on Crescent Road, and it's, let's say, right before Green Hill.
Okay.
More or less.
Over there by where the speed camera is, more or less.
Exactly. Yes,
Okay.
sir. That's correct.
And is it on the Buddy Attic side, or is it on the residential side?
The remediation efforts would take place on both sides, both the inlet as well as the outlet side.
And is this a quick fix, or is this something that would take a week or a couple of weeks?
A couple weeks, depending. It's weather dependent, so obviously they can't do this sort of work in the rain, but week, 2 weeks.
That sounds good. So the bike path, though, will be disrupted while the repairs are being made?
That's correct. The road should be okay, but the bike path definitely will be
Okay.
affected.
Okay.
That's where the pipe has failed.
Right.
It's slipped.
Right. So it's draining into.
There were some photos. I don't know if you actually have the photos, but the pipe has actually fractured, so it's not a straight shot.
Okay. Any
Picture's worth 1,000
questions?
words there, so you can see that the head walls are no good. They're just
Right, yeah,
they're in a
that,
complete state of failure.
How does that happen?
And
That's quite a disconnection.
yeah, it's totally separated. I mean, it's just not even together.
Just shifting soil, or that happened
Yeah,
in
sediment,
the earthquake?
things happen. I mean, over time, erosion. I believe, from what I understand from staff, they tried to. They had a drainage issue there for many years. They put some riprap on the inlet and outlet side of it, but just over time, there's just a lot of water coming down there, so it just happens.
Okay. Are there questions, or would someone like to make a motion? Ms. Pope?
Yeah, I would like to move that we authorize city manager to execute the attached contract with Next Day Concrete. The total cost of the contract amounts to $33,800. Fund source are ARPA restricted funds.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Councilmember Niesel has seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Mr. Orleans?
Thank you. It was too much to hope for from 10 minutes ago that the addendum to the contract for that other entity would be emulated for this proposed contract. I've never heard of Next Day Concrete before. Staff says it's necessary immediately to contract with them to do what probably is very necessary work. But there's no, not even a statement that all their workers are employed at a living wage, our living wage, not their assessment of what a living wage would be. And I'm just wondering if there's any knowledge that Next Day Concrete pays its workers a fair and living wage.
Right. Mr. Samarone, you've stated, and it's been the city's practice for quite some time with every single contract to ask that question. So, Mr. Samarone.
Correct. That's our policy. And I saw the Alliance Technology Living Wage and Income Position Statement, and I really like that statement as something that we could hand out and ask our vendors to sign off on it. That way we can keep record of it. I think it's something that, we can copy, obviously run it through legal, make sure it meets our legal standards. But I like having that statement that all of our contractors could sign.
That's a good idea, and it's something that the city is very conscientious about. So, having this asked repeatedly sort of uses a lot of time up, but I think that's a good idea. If there's no further discussion, let's go ahead and take a vote. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that passes unanimously. Well, thank you. So let's move on to item number 15. And that has to do with the Bureau of Engraving and Printing Supplemental Environmental Assessment. And our planner, Jamie Fearer, is here, and she has drafted a memo. The Bureau of Engraving and Printing, BEP, has prepared a draft traffic and utilities mitigation supplemental environmental assessment, EA, to evaluate potential environmental effects associated with the implementation of traffic, utility, and construction-related improvement measures associated with the proposed replacement BEP currency production facility at the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center. The draft environmental assessment analyzes the implementation of traffic, utility, and construction-related improvement measures that are needed to address the following bullet points. Number one, the potential impact of the construction and operation of the CPF on the 7 intersections determined to already have a failing level of service. Bullet number 2, potential delays and extended queue lengths on the surrounding roadways. The CPF planned use of municipal. That's the first sentence. The second sentence, let me read that again. Potential delays and extended queues lengths around on the surrounding roadways. The CPF's number 3, the CPF's planned use of municipal utility systems, including water, electric, telecommunication, gas, and sanitary. And number 4, currently insufficient laydown areas for the planned construction. Staff focused primarily on the transportation analysis in the draft environmental assessment for its review, given the expedited timeline, and notes that by not addressing the opportunity to improve the targeted roadways to also include previously planned pedestrian and bicycle infrastructure, the draft environmental assessment appears to fall short of the previous assurances in the Transportation Management Plan, TPM, and Transportation Demand Management, TMD strategies included in the final site and building report as presented to the National Capital Planning Commission at the public last August. So staff recommends that council send a letter to the USACE that summarizes the outstanding items of concern and discussed in the staff memo, those also discussed in the staff memo, and restates the city's overall opposition to the project. Ms. Fear, thank you so much for being with us tonight. This is a very, very important issue. It's moving forward. What is the timeline for public comment?
So
You
the
mentioned in the
timeline-
memo the expedited timeframe.
Yes.
Can you talk about that?
Certainly. So initially, comments were due this coming Sunday, June 2nd. The draft environmental assessment was released, I believe, on April 30th. There was a 30-day comment period. Just today, we got an email that said that they've extended the timeline for 20 more days. So comment is now due on June 21st, which is a Friday. So we actually have longer, although I did submit a draft comment letter in case we were ready to send it, but we have more time to amend it if necessary.
Got a little bit of time. So these are very serious concerns around traffic and wow. So the APB, they have not had a chance to look at this.
They
or
had
have
not because of the
time, yeah, the
expedited
timeframe.
timeline, because it was a, now granted, there's a lot of repetition in the document, but it's 666 pages. So
Yes.
even though it's called supplemental, it's a very long document, which is also why we were only able to focus primarily on the transportation impacts and didn't really focus on the utility or construction impacts as much, which we had anticipated doing since late last summer, early fall.
Yeah, so that currency production, the BEP facility, what is this about using municipal utility systems, water, electric, telecommunication, gas, and sanitation? Is that Greenbelt or is that Laurel or is that North College Park? Is that
No,
North College
they
Park?
are just tying into, it isn't green belts as far as I know. They're just tying into public utilities in order to power the facility. So they'll be tying into Washington Gas, tying into Pepco. I mean, it won't be utilizing, as far as I understand, any municipal specific utilities.
okay.
They're tying into public utilities in order to, both for the construction and ultimately for the operation of the currency production facility.
Right, right. And a laydown area, that's during construction.
That's during
that's
construction.
the area where they would be putting concrete or pipes and drywall and whatever else.
Exactly.
Right. So the traffic impacts are really vexing. I guess they really have to do with the number of employees coming in. I did have a concern just long term about the access to the parkway, the Baltimore-Washington Parkway. It's a parkway, so only cars are allowed. So do you have a sense that somewhere in the plans they might be thinking about changing the access so the trucks would be able to enter or exit at Powder Mill Road?
I did not see that. I believe that they plan on having trucks probably come up the Beltway or Route 1.
I just wanted to make sure.
Edmondson, Powder Mill, yeah.
Because 295, when it becomes 295 in DC, trucks are allowed, and going north up around the exit 32, I think, or 100, trucks are allowed between there and Baltimore. I think it's 32. So I think we certainly want to protect the integrity of the parkway. And from Greenbelt's point of view, having trucks going up and down the parkway, that's something that's just a non-starter. Yeah, Member Tim.
So given this extra almost 3 weeks, is there a reason to hold off to give you more time on this? I mean, I suppose we could also, vote to send the letter tonight, but then with the understanding that if you have more time, you can make changes to it. But will this give you enough time to look at some of those other things in there? Or do you think the transportation aspects you've addressed here are probably the most important things?
I believe the transportation aspects are the most important. I mean, the utilities, most of them are outlined in here. They need to install above ground electric lines on existing poles. Some existing poles may need to be repaired or replaced. So that is something concerning Pepco. They need to provide Verizon service that's more above ground lines on existing poles. Some of those poles may need to be repaired or replaced. A Washington gas connection, and then a sanitary sewer line connection, which is actually the only difference between the two action alternatives in the supplemental, is just the siting of that sewer line, but both sewer lines run into the WSSC sanitary sewer system, and ultimately are treated at Blue Plains in Washington, D.C. So I don't think that we need to review those further. None of them are in our jurisdiction. In fact, none of these are in our jurisdiction. There's a brief timeline of the history of the project in the background in the memo. Council has been commenting on this since late 2019. The decision has already been made. The U.S. government will be going forward with construction. At this point, I think our best bet is to comment on the transportation impacts, because it does feel like there was a little bit of overpromising, particularly from an active transportation standpoint, on what might be provided during these mitigation efforts and what is actually in the plan. But I don't know that we need extra time to review, even though it is a very large document.
Yeah, Councilman Roberts.
Well, I think you're missing a big point, and that is they're claiming that they're going to put their wastewater, 120,000 gallons or more every day, into the sanitary sewer system and to be treated at Blue Plains. And Blue Plains is not capable of treating that water. That water has all kinds of heavy metals and things like that in that cannot be treated at that facility or any other wastewater plant, public wastewater plant. So
they are pre-treating the industrial wastewater to WSSC standards.
They're going to pre-treat it, but that doesn't mean it's clean. That only means it's pre-treated. So that's still a big issue, and it's going to continue to be a big issue. And unless you take it seriously, it's going to seriously pollute our waterways.
Thank you. Other comments from council? Please make a motion.
I move that City Council authorize staff to transmit a letter to the USACE that summarizes the outstanding items of concern as discussed in staff's memo, with the understanding that with a little bit more time, if any other issues come up, that this is the substantive portion of the letter, but it could be amended with a little bit more, given we have a little bit more wiggle room to review.
Second.
Councilmember McKinney has seconded. Yeah, and if I could ask if, as you work, if you can kind of get us a draft to eyeball as you are ready to send it off. That would
I
be
did
great.
submit a draft this
Yes,
evening.
I see the draft, yes.
So,
I haven't had a chance to look. I haven't had a chance to read through it.
And I think I sent to the city clerk the electronic version, so you probably would get that tomorrow to review. But if you feel that there's something that needs to be looked at closer, that would help direct me, because we had already reviewed this under the understanding or the belief that we had to submit it by this week. So my goal had been to submit by Friday. So I wasn't submitting on Sunday. So if there's something else that you feel needs to be addressed, we can try to take a closer look at that.
My comment about the parkway, making sure that it continues to be automotive only and not trucks.
I do not believe that's in there, but I can double check.
Yeah, and even though
These
if it's not in there, I think it's a good thing to-
These are physical changes that they're making,
Yes.
not policy changes.
Yes. Oh, thank you so much. We have some public comment. Mr. Orleans.
Thank you. For a long time, many of us have opposed this project, not because of the specific traffic elements or the complicated, and I agree with Councilmember Roberts, affluence water coming out of this new project if it's completed. And many of us have for years formed into Save Bark, and you're all familiar with Save Bark. And we've had a request to our new representative as of 18 months ago, Mr. Ivy, to try and win a community meeting with, if not Secretary Vilsack and Secretary Yellen, some undersecretary or some deputy, assistant deputy secretary, or at least the director of the Agricultural Research Service, a community meeting where we could express our concerns that Treasury not relocate BEP there at all, whatever mitigations and improvements that they might do. It doesn't belong there, we've thought. And I regret to say our new Representative Ivy has disappointed me, maybe not anybody else, in that he's been unable to secure such a community meeting with some lower level Ag Department employee or lower level Treasury Department employee. And of course, he's left it to his district staff. So he's disappointed me greatly on this, but it's not too late. The Farm Bill, this was written into the 2018 Farm Bill, a few sentences by someone, we don't know who, although I have a suspicion. The new Farm Bill is being completed as we talk, or as I'm talking, but it's not been adopted by Congress as yet. It's not too late for Representative Ivy and others. We should still call upon Representative Hoyer to join with Representative Ivy in making this request that a better alternative in Prince George's County for a relocated BEP is possible. I would like to ask council to schedule at the earliest opportunity, maybe an emergency work session, asking Representative Ivy to come and talk to us and the community, Save Bark and the community, and also asking Secretary Vilsack and Secretary Yellen to come to Greenbelt Council for a work session on whether or not the Beltsville Agricultural Research Center is the best place for a new BEP.
Thank you very much.
That's a serious request. I hope.
Yeah, thank you. Is there any reaction? Hearing none.
We just need to vote.
I think we need to vote. Yeah.
Just,
Yes.
if I could just quickly thank Ms. Fear for going through this document, for pulling together this letter. I mean, I think we all received this document, and it was, as she said, 666 pages long. So especially for a layperson to have to look at that and think like, how am I going to read this and process this? And I just really appreciate the work and time that staff put into this, and the letter as drafted. I just wanted to say that. So thank you so much. It makes our job much easier when you do your job so well. So,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, all in favor of conveying this letter, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Ms. Fear.
Thank you.
Okay, that's going to bring us to item number 17, which is an American Rescue Plan Act status update. Tim George is here at the table to talk about grant and voucher distribution map. The memo presents an ARPA progress to date summary of activities, allocations, and projects. The city has spent or committed nearly 85% of our ARPA allocation, with only 13.8% in projects under development and 1.4% in uncommitted funds. Note that all of the uncommitted funds are within the ARPA restricted designation. Lost revenue allocation, which was $10 million, was fully committed. Mr. George, thank you for tracking this and providing us with a periodic input update. So the document that you described, can you just quickly share it with us?
Sure. What I've tried to do, the city manager's asked, so kind of almost every 2 weeks or at least once a month for the last several months, we've tried to give you an update as to where we are on our spending. I'm excited. Sorry, the public works guys just left. Brian Kim especially has been extremely helpful in working a lot of those projects to completion, at least to the committed stage. So that's a big reason why these numbers are jumping up. Greg Varda is doing a great job on the recreation projects, especially the Schramm Hills Field Park, as well as the Braden Field baseball improvement. So doing a really good job of getting these projects moving forward. So the totals there just show you how our numbers are shifting. The notable projects you all have approved, some actually tonight, so I was being a little presumptive, but those are updates. So those are projects that we have through your affirmative votes, we've moved those forward. The camera trailers, the LPR, the various vehicles, just to kind of show you how much. I mean, that list right there probably represents $1 million worth of spending. So we're really trying to work hard on getting all this allocated. As I've said, although the technical deadline is December 31, we've set an internal deadline of everything obligated by the end of November at the latest. The sooner the better, because we, as noted, Ms. Gaiman and I don't know what the feds are going to require for the final submission. We're hoping that it's somewhat of an affidavit saying we promised that we did everything right all along, but they could come back and ask for more. We're figuring since they've got several thousand communities like ours, they probably don't want a report that's too in-depth because they won't have the staff to work it. But that's why we're trying to set the goal to finish by the end of November. The back page, I just wanted to, once again, just give you an update on where we are with our grant funding. We are still seeing some activity. We've had a couple of additional nonprofit grant applications come in actually in the last couple days. A few more applications for the education scholarships, a few more applications for the tree canopy. Those are not reflected in these numbers because those have not been vetted and approved, but we are seeing additional activity, which we're very excited about. I know that Bob Rand and Tom Adams and their group and Nirvana are going to be working towards getting the word out to the communities to really push the fact that we have these grant programs. We're very appreciative of their effort. So we're looking forward to once they get out on the street and get the word moving, that we'll have even that many more folks wanting to apply. It's kind of where we are numerically. The map that is included in your packet, I want to specifically call out Ryan Sigworth, our planner, for producing this map for us. The dots themselves geographically aren't significant. He just wanted to kind of spread the dots around within each of the three areas of the city. The size of the dot is significant. So the larger the circle, the more money that represents. So this is what we've done just for the grants and the voucher distribution. I'm working with Brian on basically creating this for all of our programming. So all the different things we're doing, all the emergency aid will also be done on a much larger scale. But I know council had asked if we could kind of show the table on page 2 of the memo shows numerically where the grants are being have been allocated. But this one just kind of shows it graphically and geographically, just to give everybody an idea of how we're spending the money. And I think you can see that we're pretty much, kind of looking at the numbers, 37, 32, and 30%. So pretty reasonably equal distribution of grant funding for each of the three areas of the city. The east actually lags a little bit behind the other two areas, but they're all in the 30% range.
Very good. Appreciate this update. Appreciate all the work that's going on. At some point, I guess in July or August, council needs to sit with staff and any reallocations that you guys are recommending or ideas that the public or the council has. We can make some final decisions and move forward. I know that on the consent agenda, there's two workforce development grants that are moving ahead. And I know that's one area where we haven't had as much activity perhaps as other areas. And healthcare vouchers, really a lot of money went into the healthcare vouchers, which is fantastic. And that really seems to be very impactful in the western part of the city. Comments from council? This is an update, really. I don't think there's any action required. Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, just I appreciate the responding to our request to divide it up and get a little bit of a better sense. And I think based on the best calculations I've been able to do, I think West has more population and it's followed by East and then Center in terms of actual numbers of people. So, that it makes sense in this. I think it still would be helpful. I know that these are just the grant programs, but some of the other things, like I'm thinking about also the rental funds and some of the earlier funds, just sort of thinking about it in a whole, in terms of all of the money we've spent. I appreciate you doing it for this, and I know I'm now just asking you to do more, but just being able to, I think it's important that we think about all of the money that we spent. I mean, this is a lot that was of the stuff that was going to individuals in addition to the rental funds. But yes, thank you for doing the this breakdown for us.
Yeah, it's really helpful, really informative. Somehow, just piggybacking on what you've just said, as we come to the end of the ARPA funding, I think it's important for us to look back retrospectively and maybe try and do some sort of a comprehensive assessment of the impact that the ARPA funding has had. And I'm not sure how we could do that. Maybe just talking to people, doing some sort of a formal assessment citywide to see the difference that the dollars have made, but also more importantly to see where the needs are ongoing. You know, because we've learned some things going through this process, and we've seen some activities that really do make a difference. Others perhaps not to the same extent. But you know, I think we really need to do an assessment. You know, city, maybe that's part of the visioning. In fact, I think it should be. Mr. Rand, I'm sorry, Council. Any more comments from Council?
I thought of one more thing, because I think you mentioned this in your administration reports, Mr. Samaron. But the idea of, because the funding for some of the food distributions is not included in this update, but you mentioned that we have made sure we're committed to continuing those funding through the end of the year.
It is included in some of the allocations we made. The food distributions are being funded through the ARPA restricted designations. So we're using some of that unallocated funds to putting it back into those allocations.
Okay, so it's in is it the uncommitted, that part of that section, right? It came out of that? Okay, just because it's not specifically called out here, but I wanted to.
And Tim has a total. What's the total?
So we're looking at a total of $32,000 that's going to be allocated between St. Hughes, Meals on Wheels, and other pantries. We're also going to have the two Thanksgiving and Christmas food basket, $5,000 each. Those will also be allocated. And then the last one is $10,000 for the Master Touch Food Pantry. So in total, we're looking about $50,000 additional that's going to go for food, whether it's food directly or food gift cards or the Thanksgiving and holiday gift baskets.
Going back to your comment, Mayor Pro Temp, about the allocating the funding and the map, our goal is to do it for all the programs. And that was the intent from the beginning. We're just getting there piece by piece.
You got to start somewhere.
Yes, we got to start somewhere.
I'm about like halfway.
Yeah, so.
I'm literally like halfway through doing it. So I tried to get it done for this meeting, but we ran out of time. But for the next update, we will have, it may not be mapped, but it'll certainly be a table that shows in totality where all the numbers are through each of the three areas of the city.
Mm-hmm. From a spending perspective, you're going to see a lot of the ARPA spending just happening from now until we're done with all the spending. Just today, you approve over $800,000 of ARPA expenditures.
Yes, thank you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, thank you.
Mr. Rand.
Yeah, Bob Rand, 19 Ridge Road. So I just wanted to share a couple of things. In talking with Miss Lisa at the Greenbelt Co-op Nursery, she said that some parents were hesitant to apply because they thought they had to tie their current hardship to the pandemic. And I was telling her I didn't think that was a requirement anymore. Anyway, that seems to be coming up with some people. Regarding the gift cards, at the last meeting, I requested that the gift cards be provided through the end of the year, and it sounds like that's going to happen. I also suggested that those could be increased. I know that would increase the line item here, and I don't know if that needs an approval for council, but Again, I request that you increase the gift cards from 5,000 to as much as 10,000 for St. Hugh. And then I did have a question about the uncommitted funds related to the grant allocations. For example, if Nirvan's program is amazingly successful, which we think it will be, and more people apply for scholarships, if we bump up to the allocated amount, can staff draw on uncommitted funds to cover those new applications, or does that require a new approval from council? Thank you.
I think from my perspective, it would require a reallocation of putting money, of extending that limit. I see the allocations from council as our authorization to go and make grants and go make the appropriations. So I would treat it just like any other authorization from council, that once we hit that ceiling, we would come back to council.
Well, thank you. Hey, if there's no further questions, let's go ahead and, there's another comment, please.
Nirvan Singh Gupta, Greenbelt East. I had a couple quick recommendations for the ARPA grants. I've been getting questions about the business grants from some of the people at Beltway Plaza that know I'm doing the door knocking, and they're like, "Hey, what about the business grant?" It doesn't seem like there's any responsiveness from anyone managing the email for the business grants, and there's no application on the website, so I'm not sure how exactly that's supposed to work. I think it was Kevin Simpson that was managing that.
Yes, and now we have Sihan managing those communications, so I'll follow up with Sihan about what hasn't been responded to.
Okay,
But for
the website itself, it doesn't have any other way of, like every other application has something, like where you can apply directly.
Oh, well, it could be because we had allocated all the business grants.
I see.
The funding that we have available now is that we had 2 applications that we had to claw back for a variety of reasons. So we haven't put out another request for those 2 applications we had to claw back. And they were due to compliance issues that I can't get into in a public meeting.
And second thing was on Engage Greenbelt, the website you guys have for the grants. I know the city website has like a translate, option, multiple languages. I'm not seeing that on Engage. Am I missing something?
I haven't seen it myself, so let me check with our PIO office to see if there's a Google Translate function for it.
All right, that'd be very good. Thank you.
Thank you, Nora.
Well, thank you very much. Hey, let's move on the agenda. We've got council activities. I think they've all been posted. Would anybody like to speak on any of the activities? It's been very, very busy the past week, and next week I added some as well.
One thing I just wanted to check on, the city screening. I was there. I saw Ms. Pope there, Ms. Pompey, and I think Ms. Niesel was there. Was anyone else at the city? Screening a community orchestra concert. Well, this Sunday you can hear the whole the city Aaron Copeland suite, including Greenbelt theme, which we got a little teaser at the screening, and it was
cool.
very nice. So I recommend that if you missed the city screening last week, come see the Greenbelt Community Orchestra on Sunday. I think concert band is first at 3, and then Greenbelt Community Orchestra at 4. But it was really excellent. It was very well done.
Very great event. It was like packed. It was packed.
Very good. Yeah, very well attended.
Of course, this coming weekend is Greenbelt Day weekend, so there's a lot of activities. I don't know if you want to just quickly go through the activities.
Oh, sure. We starting Friday, May 31st, we have several activities just that day. We have the Greenbelt Career Day. We have the luncheon, seniors luncheon with Councilmember Watson. The Pride flag raising at 3 p.m. On the weekend we have on Sunday the naturalization ceremony, the co-op 40th year anniversary, and the concert band.
Yeah, so Greenbelt Day weekend is the anniversary of the founding of Greenbelt, and we do that every year, and special activities. So there's kind of a lot of things going on. 40th anniversary of the co-op, and food tasting, and the farmers market, and the naturalization ceremony on Sunday.
Not for seniors only, not to forget.
Yeah, I think there's the Bricks and Blocks walking tour, which is very interesting. I definitely recommend. There's also the rescheduled Walking for Wellness. The police department is doing that on Saturday morning. And then Selkie was just mentioning the Not for Seniors Only, Navigating the Complexities of Aging.
1 p.m., I believe.
Yeah. And
Sounds like Tim's going to be there too.
And then there's also the Artful Afternoon, the outdoor painting, and the Greenbelt Open House and the tour that was mentioned, I think. Oh, and ukuleles. And there's ukuleles. There's a ukulele concert. I believe that's 1:30 to 2:30. So there's there's something for everybody this weekend.
Mr. Mayor, you had two items. Did you mean to special order those two items?
Yeah, I don't think I need to. I think we can just go directly to them. First, just briefly, item 24, I pulled off of the agenda. And could you just briefly explain or talk to us the 5-month electrical contract extension where we're going to 100% green electricity, or we're actually extending that, saving quite a bit of money. If you could just briefly.
Oh,
state-
sure. It's we can get really nerdy about this, but in short, our energy contract expires this month in May, so we need a new contract in place for June through ideally through November. But the best pricing we can get was for a 5-month contract of all the options we had, and that actually the timing works great because November, something that happens statistically during an election, gas prices go down. So the timing is going to work fine for us to renegotiate energy contract for November and beyond. But the timing is also important because we have a 2-megawatt solar array that's going to come online in December. So we don't want to
come online.
The fingers crossed, and should the construction team complete all the work, it should go online in December. And I'm sure that they would be in their interest to go online in this calendar year because there may be some benefits from capacity credits and other items that they'll be able to claim if they do it this year versus waiting until next year. So in short, this contract is allow us to secure energy at a reduced rate from June through October. We'll be saving around 25% on the energy charges. That represents around $34,000 without excluding our city lights. I will connect with Pepco about covering the charges for the city lights under this contract. If that happens, it'll be over $40,000 on energy savings.
That's powerful. 25% saving. That's something that we should really acknowledge and thank you for working on that.
Thank you.
So let's get a motion and
I move that we approve the 5-month electric contract extension with WGL Energy Services for 100% green electricity, covering the period from June 1st to November 1st, 2024.
Second.
Okay, if there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? That does carry. And item number 26 has to do with the Maryland Municipal League legislative action request. So each year, the league solicits suggestions from all of its members for legislative priority items for MML to advocate for in the next season, the next legislative season. So the deadline is actually coming up on May 31st, which is just a few days from now. So the criteria that they use, each municipality is able to submit up to 3 legislative requests for consideration. The deadline is coming up very quickly. They sort of moved it up. This used to happen in September, but because so much work on the upcoming legislative session actually happens in August and September, it's an effort to kind of get ahead of things. So Mr. Samaron forwarded a listing of 7 or 8 items that we had advocated for in the past, but we only put 3 of these forward. So I would like to propose that we put forward number 1, continuing to put forward that opposition to the maglev. But I think 2 of the items, number 5 and number 6, the homeowners homestead tax credit extension, retroactive claims, and number 6, the property tax abatement, improved information flow. Those are things that we've advocated for a couple of years, and I think they would be really impactful to our residents. With that homestead and homeowners tax credit, the people who are at greatest risk, the ones that are really having a lot of challenges, they are the ones that are most likely to miss the deadline. It's an annual deadline that you have to send in October 1st. And to me, just in thinking about it, if you qualify for that tax credit, you should be able to get it. And it shouldn't really be about the deadline. It should be about you qualifying for that deduction. So I'd like to propose that we put forward item number 1, number 5, and number 6. Number 6 is property tax abatement information. That's something that we've talked about. Our treasurer, Ms. Gaiman, has just bemoaned the fact that we cannot find out when a property owner puts forward a tax abatement request. We don't find out about it until after it's been adjudicated. So it's like after the fact. We're in the budget process now, and if one of our property owners puts in $1 million tax abatement request, that hits really, really hard. And something like that did happen several years ago. I think it was for about $500,000. So I'd like to propose those 3. I don't know. Anybody want to second that?
Well, I have a suggestion. I mean, I actually agree with 5 and 6, the homeowner tax credit extension and the property tax abatement. But instead of 1, because we're already kind of, doing that, we're already fighting this, I was going to bring up maybe number 3. So for me, it was 3, 5, and 6.
Okay.
Because I feel like with the MAGLIF, we already, we have lawyers involved, we already kind of working diligently on that issue. Maybe we should pick something different that we're not currently working on already.
I hear you. Other suggestions on Ms. Pompey, Ms. Niesel?
I would support, I think that we should support number 4, juvenile justice reforms and appropriation and socioeconomic support. This is a huge issue here just in our city. We hear this from the police all the time. If we don't have the necessary resources for our youth, they're going to continue getting caught in this sort of cycle. So I think that it's really important that we continue to advocate for that.
Okay. Ms. Niesel?
Sure. I would like to advocate for keeping number 1, the opposition to the maglev, on our list. I have heard from the Forest Preserve Advisory Board that they're concerned that it's not really rising to the forefront anymore, that it's a little bit being forgotten about. So I think it would be important to our constituents and definitely the Forest Preserve Advisory Board. And I would like to echo Councilmember Pompey's statements about number 4 being incredibly important, especially to our community, as we face this kind of perceived struggle with youth justice.
Mr. Mayor, I'm keeping a tally. Would it be possible to get Ms. Pompey's and a third one from Ms. Diesel?
One more thing, and I'm sorry that Ms. Gaiman already left, but it seemed to me that yes, the property tax abatement was an issue several years ago, but ever since then it has kept dropping and not come up to those levels, so much so that she seemed to not be incredibly worried at the last work session about it. So I wonder if that is a good use of our authority or voice at this time.
I think it is. I think that we're in a very precarious situation with some of the property owners, and if you look around at the malls in the city and some of the office space. So yes, her estimate in the budget for the short term for this year is moderated a bit, but this issue of getting the information when it becomes available, knowing before when someone asks is an ongoing concern, I think. And if I could, with the juvenile justice, that was like the highest legislative priority, I think, for our delegation and for so many Prince George's County and folks throughout the state. So I think the machinations that went on in the session will continue, but yeah, I'm just wondering if the initiatives supporting continue, I'm just wondering if they're going to continue to rise to that level. It seems like there's a real back and forth. A lot of the bills that were up will be resubmitted. So I'm thinking that we probably don't need to put that forward because it is going forward, and our senator and our delegates are very, very sensitive, working hard on those things. So we've got a couple of proposals. We could vote individually on them. Mayor Pro Tem, Ms. McKinney, Mr. Roberts, do you have any suggestions or thoughts about these?
Well, it just seems like it's an interesting question because it's obvious. I think all of these things are important. I think it's a balance of which ones do we put forward, because it's not like these are the ones that are going to get decided on by the committee. It's the ones that we're putting forward to. So I think we have to think not only about what are our priorities, but also what we think other people's priorities are, so that we're sort of balancing what will actually proceed beyond the next step.
And that is the reality, yes.
Yeah, so I think what we've had various suggested, I don't know, it's hard to pick.
You can pick three.
Yeah, I know,
So you want me to go, so 2 was for number 1, 1, number 3, that was me.
Well, let me, so I'd like this homestead tax extension and retroactive claim piece. I'd like to motion that we adopt that as one of the 3. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor of that, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? I think I heard 4.
I think so too. I didn't hear any
Okay.
nays, so that's for sure. Did it?
Okay, so that's 1. Which would you like? Would somebody like to make a motion on one of these other ones?
The number 3, enable legislation zoning authority for local municipalities, because this is something we really want.
I would support the.
Seconding that?
I am seconding the.
Is there any discussion?
I just to add to, I mean, I think just looking forward in what's going to be happening with FBI, we need to be thinking sure about what's going to happen, and as if we can push it, and we're so far behind on the authority that we do have right now, we need to be thinking very strategically on
Yes,
how to
yes,
get
I think
that.
that's something we really need.
I agree in the discussion. I agree. But the question about how would this move forward, it's a Prince George's County thing, because most other municipalities throughout the state actually have the zoning for local authority. And we saw our county council kind of shoot that down. There was a bill that went, Delegate Holmes, Marvin Holmes, put forward a bill to allow municipalities with, I think it was 10,000 or more, to have some limited additional zoning authority. Mr. Roberts objected because he thought that it was window dressing. But I think that it's important, but I don't think that this will go forward statewide. I think it's something we have to work on in Prince George's County.
And I think that is something to keep in mind, that these are things to propose to MML. I don't know. I agree that I think that one is important, but I see the point is that that's really something more to I think that's maybe something we propose to PGCMA as something, as putting that forward with PGCMA, maybe rather than MML, just because it's more of a county issue than a state issue. But I agree that it's important. So see, this is the trade-off, right?
I think the more we talk about it, I think we need to be on the ball with that and just keep talking about it, like the squeaky wheel gets the oil. That's kind of my approach with that. Every time you see him, you have to say something, because otherwise it gets lost.
So there's a motion on the floor. Let's vote on it. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
I hear 2. Opposed? I'm gonna.
No, I think
no.
not for the MML list.
I think it's something we got to push with the county council and with the state, the Prince George's County delegation. Well, we've got a comment online. There's a hand raised. Why, it's Jay Davis. And she says, please call on me. Is it council's will? Shall I call on her?
Yes, please call on her.
Okay, Jay Davis. Well, let's see. Allow to.
She's got permission to speak.
Just unmute. She's got. Jay Davis, are you there? Is she unmuted?
She has permission to permission to speak.
Well,
So
she
I'm not-
says MML supported opposition to the maglev only once and will not do so again. Of course, Jay Davis sat on that legislative committee. She didn't just sit there. She was there, and she raised the flag for Greenbelt for many, many years. So I think Jay is suggesting if we can't. Oh, there she is. Jay Davis, are you there?
Yeah, it took me a while to figure out the new system. Yeah, I was on the committee when, several years ago, when I was able to convince the MML Legislative Committee to use as one of their priorities to oppose the maglev. I used all of my points on that one, all of my chits. And I was told after that, because it failed miserably in that particular year, that please don't ask for that again. It's very important to us. It's very important to Prince George's County and other counties. But unfortunately for the rest of the state, it is not a very important item to them. And that's the problem with the MML Legislative Committee.
Right.
They look at the whole state and its needs rather than a region or a county. So I know that several of you wanted to propose opposition to the maglev. We'll need to continue to do that with their delegates. It is gaining traction, but you'll not get any traction from MML.
Well, thank you. Hey, Jay Davis, while we have you on the line, I was wondering, several items are here, but item number 7 has to do with funding, and municipalities throughout the state are looking for funding. And so item number 7, regulating online streaming services for sustainable local media funding. And I don't know if you've looked about if that was discussed at all, but the reality is our cable TV broadcast and our gate television studio, they are reliant on PEG funds, public education and governmental access funding that they get from the cable TV providers, Verizon and Comcast. And I know that council, we're going to be considering a contract approval from,
Already approved in November 2022.
Right. So the reason why I'm saying that is we need to identify some additional funding sources. And Jay Davis, do you think this action request on regulating online streaming services for local media funding, is that something you think might fly?
I know that every year they bring up that municipalities need more funding and more sources of funding. It was one of their strategies last year and the year before that. The problem is that they can never get everyone to agree to any particular strategy or revenue source. But you can certainly suggest it if you think that is something that would hit many people. I think that would work.
Okay. Well, to try and expedite this, if a council member wants to make a motion on any of these, I'll make another motion on number 6, the property tax abatement information flow piece. I'd like to move that we also choose that as a legislative action priority. Is there a second? Second. Okay. Is there discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed?
No, I think there's others that are more important, but
So it sounds like that.
that may be enough to
It
pass.
passed, yeah.
And there was support for juvenile justice. Does somebody want to make a motion for that?
I'll move that. I'll move that we support juvenile justice reform and appropriation and socioeconomic support.
Okay, is there a second? Second. And Ms. Pope has seconded. Is there any additional discussion? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, so those are
Number
3.
4, number 5, and number 6.
We've got 3. So I was thinking
3.
maybe we can just, right.
We were supposed to pick 3, right? Pick
That's
3.
right, that's correct.
Like the
So
lottery.
I'm sorry we didn't have more time to think these through and talk about them in advance, but the deadline comes up pretty fast, and it's just a few days, and there's a form staff has to fill out, which is a little cumbersome. So that pretty much, yeah.
But I think an important point is that these are the 3 things we're submitting to MML. It's not as if I think Ms. Niesel's point about the maglev and some of them trying to get more traction and things like this, we can still figure out how we can do some of these other things that are important, or sending the zoning and making sure PGCMA is looking at that. So, we're not saying these others aren't important. We're just saying these are the 3 to send to MML.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And through our work with PGCMA, through working with the 4 cities, talking to our delegation, and with our Mr. Carrington, who is still working with us And we need to get an update or some information from him pretty soon.
Yes, and from our last meeting with Mr. Carrington, he had proposed a legislative retreat with council so that we could strategize our advocacy efforts and what things we want to see done with the different bodies that we have to work with. So right now, what he suggested was planning for MML and then planning for the pre-filing deadlines in November for the state legislator, and then so that when December and January comes around, we already have drafted a strategy and already executing a strategy. And that's with the state, but there's also a county level. Most recently, just today, we reached out to ask where our Senate earmarks sit at. So we know Congressman Ivey submitted our youth center pool project. We're waiting on the senator and what their submission is going to be. So we're tracking those things.
Yeah, and that's really important. That's why we are working with him. And it's not just Congressman Ivey. It's also Senator Van Hollen and Senator Cardin, for that matter, while he's still in office. We need to be moving forward. Jay Davis, I don't know if her hand is still up or if it's up again.
No, yes, I did have a question. There was also an early date for applying for the MML committees.
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm hoping that someone has applied for the legislative committee.
I think the deadline is Friday.
Everything's on
I'm going to toss my name in there, but I think I'm going to try and work with other council members to cover some of the meetings. I know Ms. Pompey is out there, works there.
I can, if that's amenable, I can, I don't know that I feel ready to take it on all by myself, but I can support you on that, backstop you on that.
It's really important that we have somebody on that committee and the other committees as well. So I want to urge my colleagues on council to apply for the other committees. There's the Conference Planning Committee. There is the
Public engagement.
Engagement, which is outreach. It's a good way to actually get to know council members in other parts of the state. So
I'm thinking about the conference committee, actually. I'm trying to decide if I
Conference is,
have to-
that's the one on Saturday. See, that's the only one I can apply for because all the other ones are during the week and I can't go during the week, so.
Well,
But
more
go
than
ahead,
one
go ahead,
council
feel
member
free,
can
feel free.
certainly apply.
Yeah, well,
Well,
I'm trying to decide if I have the bandwidth to do another one right now, but I'm thinking about it.
I got to tell you, from my experience, most of those ML committees, it's not that much bandwidth. But with conference planning, there is a little bit more work just coming closer to the conference.
Right, but that's almost better, actually, because then it's a little bit more concentrated, right?
You can plan for it a little
Yeah.
better, yeah.
And it's on a Saturday, usually, Saturday morning.
Hey, we've covered a lot of ground. Some of the agenda items they weren't cumbersome. Important things, important funding allocations, and the discussion on the BEP, and just a lot of things. So I want to thank each of you on council and staff, Mr. Samaro, Mr. George, and Ms. Lashley Mellon, and everybody for working through these issues. Sometimes the meetings will go a little bit long, but it's because we got business to take care of, and we have to have the discussions. So at this point, I'll talk for a little bit longer, but if a council member wants to make a motion.
Yeah, I second that real quick.
Okay. Madam Clerk, can you call the roll, please?
Ms. Niesel? Yes. Ms. Pompey?
Yes.
Ms. Pope? Yes. Ms. McKinney?
Yes.
Mr. Roberts? Ms. Weaver?
Yes.
Mayor Jordan?
Yes, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.